Hey guys, tonight we journey into the frozen heart of Westeros to uncover one of the most profound mysteries in all of Game of Thrones, the true destiny of Jon Snow, the bastard who became a king, then walked away from everything to vanish beyond the wall. But what if I told you that Jon Snow didn't abandon his crown at all? What if he claimed the most ancient and powerful throne in all the Seven Kingdoms, one that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy? This is the story of the king beyond the Iron Throne, the crown of winter, and a destiny so magnificent and terrible that it could only be borne by someone who never wanted power at all. Tonight we'll follow the trail of clues that George R.R. Martin wove throughout his entire saga, the hidden prophecies, the ancient bloodlines, and the cosmic responsibility that Jon Snow carried in his very bones. So before you settle in for this epic journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world, especially when we're exploring stories that span centuries and continents. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Get into your blanket and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this, deep in the haunted forest beyond the wall, where the trees grow so thick that daylight barely touches the ground, there stands an ancient weirwood older than memory itself. Its bone-white bark bears a face carved not by human hands, but by time and magic and the tears of the earth. The red sap that flows from its eyes has been weeping for 1,000 years, waiting for someone to understand what it has seen. Ghost, the great white direwolf, now massive beyond anything the world has known, sits vigil beneath this tree. His red eyes, bright as fresh blood on snow, watch the northern horizon with an intelligence that speaks of things no ordinary wolf could comprehend. He has been waiting here for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days, waiting for someone to finally ask the right question. Not where did Jon Snow go? Not why did he leave? But what crown did he claim when he walked away from everything the world thought he wanted? The answer lies buried in the deepest snows of the true north, where the old gods still walk and the first magic still flows through the roots of the world. It's written in the songs the free folk sing around their fires, songs they don't fully understand but sing anyway because their bones remember what their minds have forgotten. It's carved in runes of ice that form and reform with each winter storm, spelling out a name in the first tongue that translates to something the common tongue has no words for. The king who kneels to no throne, the crown of winter, the last guardian of the balance. For Jon Snow didn't go north to find peace. He went north to claim the most ancient seat of power in all the world, one that has been waiting for a king with dragon fire in his blood and wolf ice in his heart. A throne that exists not in any castle or keep, but in the very bones of the world itself. In the deepest part of the haunted forest, where the trees grow in perfect circles and the snow never melts, there stands a crown made of ice and starlight, forged by the first magic when the world was young. It has been waiting for centuries, waiting for the one who would be worthy, waiting for the king who would accept the greatest responsibility any mortal has ever borne. And on a night 7 years ago, when the aurora borealis danced green and gold across the sky, when the old gods stirred in their long sleep, and the children of the forest emerged from their hidden places, Jon Snow walked into that perfect circle of ancient trees. He knelt before a crown that no one else could see, accepted a responsibility that would make him the loneliest man in the world, and became something more than human, more than king, more than anything the Iron Throne could ever make him. But what is this crown? What power does it hold? What responsibility did Jon Snow accept that night, alone in the forest with only Ghost as witness? And why do the free folk now speak in whispers of the king beyond the wall, the one who protects them from threats they cannot name, who keeps the balance that allows the world to continue spinning? The wildlings have a saying now, passed down in hushed tones from mother to child. The Iron Throne was built on conquest, but the crown of winter was built on sacrifice. And the king who wears it rules not over people, but over the forces that keep the world from falling into eternal darkness or being consumed by endless fire. Tonight we follow the trail that Jon Snow left behind. We walk in the footsteps of Ghost, who knows secrets that even the three-eyed raven never suspected. We uncover the truth about the bastard who became the most powerful king in the history of the world, and why he could never ever return to the life he once knew. This is the story of Jon Snow's real destiny. The crown he was always meant to wear, the throne he was born to claim, and the sacrifice that makes him the greatest king who ever lived, even though no one will ever know his name. Get comfortable, close your eyes. Let the soft sounds of the night carry you into the frozen heart of Westeros, where the most incredible story in all of Game of Thrones is about to unfold. You are a traveling chronicler, one of the few scholars left in Westeros who still believes the old stories matter. Your weathered hands have copied countless manuscripts. Your eyes have studied faded maps of lands beyond the wall, and your heart has always been drawn to the mysteries that others dismiss as legend. But tonight, you're not just reading about history, you're about to become part of it. The journey begins at the ruins of Castle Black, where the Great Wall still stands but the Night's Watch has long since disbanded. The ancient stones are covered in a thin layer of frost even in summer, and the wind that blows through the empty corridors carries whispers of oaths once sworn and duties long abandoned. You stand in the courtyard where Jon Snow once trained, where he learned to fight, where he first understood what it meant to be a bastard in a world that had no place for him. But something is different here now. The very air hums with an energy that wasn't present when the Watch still kept their vigil. The ravens that roost in the ruined towers are pure white, their eyes the color of winter ice, and they watch you with an intelligence that seems almost human. When you move, they turn their heads in perfect unison, as if they're waiting for something, as if they know why you've come. You've traveled from King's Landing with nothing but a leather satchel filled with ancient texts, a worn cloak that's seen too many winters, and a determination to uncover the truth about Jon Snow's disappearance. The official story, the one told in the halls of power, is simple enough. Jon Snow, the bastard who became king in the north, who discovered his true parentage as Aegon Targaryen, chose exile over a crown. He walked away from everything to live out his days beyond the wall, seeking peace in the frozen wilderness. But you know stories, and you know when they don't ring true. There are too many gaps, too many questions left unanswered. Why did the free folk begin speaking of a king beyond the wall within months of Jon's departure? Why do the traders who venture north return with tales of impossible things? White ravens that speak in the common tongue, aurora borealis that dance in patterns too perfect to be natural, and always, always, the stories of a great white wolf that walks beside a figure wrapped in shadows, moving through the deepest parts of the haunted forest. The official histories will tell you that Jon Snow's story ended when he rode north through the gates of Castle Black for the last time. But here, in this place where the old magic still flows like water through stone, you can feel the truth thrumming in your bones. His story didn't end that day. It began. Your first companion on this journey reveals himself as you stand contemplating the empty kennels where the Night's Watch once kept their hunting hounds. Ghost emerges from the shadows between the buildings, and your breath catches in your throat. The great white direwolf has grown beyond anything you could have imagined. He stands nearly as tall as a horse, his massive frame rippling with muscle beneath fur that seems to glow with its own inner light. His red eyes, bright as garnets held up to flame, fix on you with an intelligence that speaks of things no ordinary wolf could know. He doesn't approach you directly. Instead, he circles you slowly, silently, his great paws making no sound on the frozen ground. You can feel his assessment, his judgment, as if he's looking not just at your body, but into your very soul. After what feels like an eternity, he stops directly in front of you and tilts his massive head, studying your face with those burning red eyes. Then, impossibly, he nods. Once, deliberately. And you understand that Ghost has been waiting for you, waiting for someone to finally ask the right questions, to finally seek the truth about his master's fate. He turns and begins walking toward the great iron gate that leads beyond the wall, pausing only once to look back at you with an expression that clearly says, "Follow me." As you walk beside this legendary creature, you notice things that fill you with wonder and just a touch of fear. The ground beneath Ghost's paws doesn't just freeze, it transforms. Where he steps, intricate patterns of ice form and spread, creating mandalas of crystalline beauty that seem to pulse with their own heartbeat. The white ravens follow overhead, their wings casting shadows that somehow seem darker than shadows should be, and their calls sound less like bird cries and more like ancient words in a language you almost recognize. You're not just following Ghost through the abandoned lands beyond the wall. You're following a legend, a creature that has become something more than wolf, something that bridges the gap between the world of men and the realm of the old gods. And as you walk, you begin to understand that Ghost isn't just showing you the way to Jon Snow. He's leading you to a truth that will change everything you thought you knew about power, about kingship, about the very nature of the world itself. The landscape around you shifts and changes as you move deeper into the true north. The trees grow taller and more ancient, their branches intertwining overhead to create a canopy so thick that day and night blur together into a perpetual twilight. The snow here doesn't behave like ordinary snow. It falls upward sometimes, swirling in patterns that seem to spell out words in languages that died before the Andals ever came to Westeros. And always, always, there's the sense that you're being watched by eyes older than memory, judged by minds that have seen the rise and fall of kingdoms. You realize that you're no longer just in the lands beyond the wall. You've entered the true north, the realm where the old magic still flows strong, where the barriers between the world of men and the world of spirits grow thin. This is where Jon Snow came seeking answers, seeking purpose, seeking the truth about who he really was and what he was meant to become. And somewhere ahead, in the heart of this mystical wilderness, lies the answer to the greatest mystery in all of Westeros. The truth about the bastard who became more than a king, who claimed a crown that no one else could see, who accepted a responsibility that would make him the most powerful and the loneliest man in the world. Ghost stops suddenly and turns to look at you, his red eyes glowing brighter in the twilight. In that gaze you see knowledge, you see sorrow, and you see something that might be hope. He's brought you this far, but the rest of the journey, the real journey, must be yours to choose. The crown of winter waits ahead, and with it, the truth about Jon Snow's real destiny. The decision crystallizes in your mind like ice forming on still water. You've spent your life collecting fragments of truth from dusty tomes and faded scrolls, but here stands the greatest mystery of your age, waiting to be unraveled. Ghost's intelligent gaze seems to pierce through every doubt, every hesitation, and when you finally nod your acceptance, the great direwolf's ears prick forward with something that looks remarkably like approval. "I'll follow wherever you lead," you whisper into the Arctic silence, your words creating small clouds of vapor that hang in the air like ghostly signatures. "Show me what Jon Snow truly became." Ghost turns without ceremony and begins padding toward the ancient wooden door that leads beyond the wall. Each of his massive paws leaves a perfect impression in the snow, and you notice that within moments of his passing, those prints begin to fill with ice that forms intricate patterns, as if the very ground is trying to preserve the memory of his passage. You hurry to keep pace, your shorter legs working hard to match his effortless stride. The great gate of Castle Black creaks open at Ghost's approach, though no human hand touches it. The massive iron hinges, rusted with age and neglect, move as smoothly as if they were freshly oiled. As you pass through that threshold, you feel something shift in the world around you. The air becomes sharper, more alive, filled with an energy that makes your skin tingle and your heart race. You've crossed more than just a physical boundary here. You've entered a realm where the old laws still hold sway, where magic flows as freely as mountain streams, and where the impossible becomes merely improbable. Beyond the wall, the landscape transforms into something from the deepest legends. The trees grow larger and more ancient than any you've seen in the south, their massive trunks twisted into shapes that seem almost deliberate, as if they were grown rather than simply allowed to flourish. The snow here doesn't fall in the chaotic patterns you know from winter storms. Instead, it drifts down in spirals and helixes, creating temporary sculptures of crystalline beauty that exist for moments before dissolving back into the endless white. Your first discovery comes within an hour of beginning the journey. Ghost leads you to a clearing where the remnants of an old campsite still remain. The fire pit is filled with ash that gleams silver in the pale northern light, and when you kneel to examine it more closely, you realize that this isn't ordinary ash at all. It's the remains of burned manuscripts, but manuscripts written in a script you don't recognize. The characters seem to shift and change as you watch them, as if the very act of observation alters their meaning. Someone was here, you murmur, lifting a handful of the strange ash and letting it sift through your fingers. Someone who could read the old tongues. Ghost watches you examine the site with patient attention, his red eyes never leaving your face. When you finally look up at him, he moves to the edge of the clearing and nods toward a particular tree. Following his gaze, you see symbols carved into the bark, but these aren't the random scratches of travelers marking their passage. These are deliberate, purposeful markings that seem to pulse with their own inner light. The first symbol is a dire wolf, but not just any dire wolf. This one has wings of fire spreading from its shoulders, and its eyes are carved deep enough that they seem to hold actual flames. Below it, a dragon coils around the trunk of the tree, but this dragon's scales are made of ice, and frost spreads from its carved form into the surrounding bark. And at the base of the tree, where the roots disappear into the frozen ground, there's a crown. Not the elaborate golden circlet of southern kings, but something simpler and infinitely more powerful. A crown of intertwined branches and icicles, with runes carved along its band that hurt your eyes to look at directly. The wolf, the dragon, and the crown. You breathe, running your fingers over the carvings. But what do they mean together? Ghost's response comes not in words, but in action. He approaches the tree and places one massive paw against the carved crown. The moment his fur touches the symbol, the entire clearing fills with a sound like wind chimes made of ice, and the aurora borealis erupts across the sky above you, even though it's barely past midday. The lights dance in patterns that seem almost like letters, spelling out words in a language that your mind can't quite grasp but your heart somehow understands. Then, as suddenly as it began, the display ends. The lights fade, the chimes fall silent, and Ghost steps back from the tree. But the message is clear. You're on the right path, following in the footsteps of someone who left these markers deliberately. Someone who wanted the truth to be found by those brave enough to seek it. The journey continues deeper into the haunted forest, and with each step, the world becomes more dreamlike, more infused with the kind of magic that most people dismiss as children's tales. The trees here grow in perfect spirals, their branches reaching toward the sky in mathematical precision that speaks of intelligence behind their growth. The snow forms patterns on the ground that look like written words, dissolving and reforming as you watch, as if the very earth is trying to tell you a story. Ghost leads you along paths that seem to exist only when you're walking on them, trails that appear beneath your feet and vanish behind you like ripples on water. You begin to understand that you're not just traveling through a forest, you're traveling through a living entity, a conscious wilderness that's guiding your steps as surely as Ghost is guiding your direction. The wildlife here defies everything you thought you knew about the natural world. White ravens with eyes like sapphires perch on branches overhead, their calls sounding almost like human speech. Snow foxes, with fur that shimmers like starlight, dart between the trees, and in the distance you catch glimpses of creatures that might be deer, if deer could be made of crystallized moonlight and move with the grace of flowing water. But it's the silence that strikes you most profoundly. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of a deeper quiet that seems to come from the earth itself. It's the kind of silence that speaks of ancient secrets, of truths so profound that they can only be expressed in the language of stillness. Walking through this realm, you begin to understand why Jon Snow chose to come here. In the south, he was always surrounded by noise, by the constant chatter of politics and ambition, and the endless demands of those who saw him as a tool for their own purposes. But here, in this sacred silence, he could finally hear the voice of his own destiny. As the day progresses and the pale northern sun begins its descent toward the horizon, Ghost leads you to a sight that stops you in your tracks. Rising from the forest floor like a monument to some forgotten god, there stands a weirwood tree of impossible size. Its trunk is so massive that it would take 100 men holding hands to encircle it, and its branches stretch so high that they disappear into the low-hanging clouds. The face carved into its bark is unlike any you've seen in the godswoods of the south. This face is ancient beyond measure, its features worn smooth by countless centuries of wind and weather, but its eyes still weep the red sap that marks all heart trees. But these tears are different. As they fall from the carved eyes, they don't simply stain the bark red, they form patterns, temporary runes that appear and disappear like writing made of blood and time. Ghost approaches the great tree and sits before it, his massive form dwarfed by the ancient giant. He looks back at you expectantly, and you understand that this is more than just a stopping point. This is a test. You walk slowly toward the weirwood, feeling the weight of its attention like a physical presence. The closer you get, the more you can feel the power radiating from its ancient wood. This isn't just a tree, it's a repository of memory, a living library that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of heroes, the endless cycle of seasons that marks the passage of time in the north. When you finally place your hand against the smooth bark, the world explodes into vision and memory. You see Jon Snow standing in this very spot, but he's not alone. Around him stand figures from legend, the heroes and kings of ages past. Bran the Builder, the first Stark king, nods gravely as he places something in Jon's hands. The Night King, not the evil creature of recent memory, but the original figure from the old stories, offers a crown of ice and starlight, and behind them all, barely visible in the swirling mists of time, stands a figure that might be the first man ever to walk these lands, holding a scroll covered in runes that seem to burn with their own inner fire. The vision fades, but its message remains clear. Jon Snow didn't come north to escape his destiny. He came north to claim it, and that destiny is older and more powerful than any iron throne, any crown forged by human hands, any kingdom built on conquest and gold. Ghost rises from his position beside the tree and begins walking again, but his pace has changed. Where before he moved with the casual confidence of a guide showing familiar territory, now he moves with the solemnity of a pilgrim approaching a sacred shrine. You follow, your mind reeling from what you've seen, your heart pounding with the knowledge that you're being led towards something that will change everything you thought you knew about power, about kingship, about the very nature of what it means to rule. The ancient weirwood's presence follows you as you move deeper into the forest, its watchful attention, a constant reminder that you're no longer just a chronicler seeking a story. You've become part of the story itself, a witness to truths that have been hidden for centuries, a keeper of secrets that could reshape the world if they were ever revealed. And somewhere ahead, in the deepest part of the haunted forest where the old magic flows strongest, Jon Snow waits with a crown that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy, and a responsibility that makes the rule of the Seven Kingdoms seem like a pleasant diversion. The king beyond the Iron Throne, the bearer of the crown of winter, the guardian of secrets that keep the world in balance. Ghost's red eyes glow brighter in the gathering dusk, and you realize that this is only the beginning. The real journey, the real revelations, lie ahead in the heart of the true North, where the barriers between legend and reality have long since dissolved, and where the most incredible story in all of Westeros waits to be told. The deeper you venture into the haunted forest, the more the world around you transforms into something that exists beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. Ghost leads you through groves where the trees grow in perfect geometric patterns, their branches interweaving overhead to create natural cathedrals of living wood and crystalline ice. The very air here seems to shimmer with possibility, as if the ancient magic that once shaped the world still flows through these lands like an underground river, waiting for those with the wisdom to recognize its presence. Your second major discovery comes as the pale northern sun reaches its zenith, casting long shadows through the forest that seem to move independently of the trees that create them. Ghost stops beside a formation of standing stones that rises from the forest floor like the ribs of some impossibly ancient creature. The stones are carved with symbols that make your eyes water to look at directly, but when you approach them sideways, glimpsing them from the corner of your vision, their meaning becomes almost clear. These are not just markers or monuments. They are a message written in the first tongue, carved by hands that understood the deepest secrets of the world. You pull out your traveling journal and begin to sketch the symbols, your hand moving almost without conscious direction as you copy the ancient script. But something strange happens as you work. The symbols you draw in your journal begin to glow with a soft blue light, and you realize that you're not just copying these runes, you're activating them. The first symbol shows a wolf walking through fire, but the flames don't burn its fur. Instead, they seem to make the wolf stronger, more real, more present. The second shows a dragon made of ice, its breath creating not destruction but new life, forests of crystal trees and mountains of frozen starlight. The third symbol is the most complex, a crown that seems to be made of both fire and ice, with antlers that reach toward the sky and roots that delve deep into the earth. But it's the fourth symbol that stops your heart. It's a man kneeling before something that your mind can't quite process. The figure is clearly meant to be Jon Snow. You can see the long hair, the familiar silhouette, but he's kneeling not before a throne or an altar, but before what appears to be the world itself. The earth, the sky, the very fabric of reality seems to be gathered around him, and he's accepting not just a crown but a responsibility that encompasses everything that exists. Ghost watches you work with patient attention, his red eyes never leaving your face. When you finally close your journal, the great direwolf approaches the standing stones and places his paw against the largest one. The moment his fur touches the ancient rock, the entire formation begins to resonate with a sound like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The symbols flare with brilliant light, and suddenly the air around you is filled with whispers in the old tongue, voices speaking words that your mind can't understand but your soul recognizes. The whispers tell a story, fragmented and incomplete, but powerful enough to make your hands tremble as you listen. They speak of a bargain made in the deepest winter, of a crown that chooses its own king, of a power so ancient that it existed before the first men ever set foot in Westeros. They speak of Jon Snow, but not as the bastard of Winterfell, or even as Aegon Targaryen. They speak of him as the King of Winter, the guardian of the balance, the one who accepted the crown that no one else could bear. But the whispers also carry a warning. The power that Jon claimed comes with a price that would break ordinary men. The crown of winter grants dominion over the forces of nature themselves, but it also demands complete sacrifice. The king who wears it can never return to the world of men, never again know the simple pleasures of human connection, never again be just a man who loves and is loved in return. He becomes something greater and more terrible, a force of nature clothed in human form, forever alone except for the company of those few creatures who can understand the weight of his burden. The whispers fade, but their message remains burned into your consciousness. Jon Snow didn't walk away from power. He walked toward the greatest power imaginable, and in doing so, he made himself the most powerful and the most isolated being in all the world. As you process this revelation, Ghost leads you to your next discovery. Hidden beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree, partially buried in snow that never melts, you find a collection of objects that make your breath catch in your throat. They're carefully wrapped in oiled leather, preserved against the ravages of time and weather, and each one tells a part of Jon Snow's story that history will never know. The first item is a horn, but not just any horn. This is carved from what appears to be the antler of some impossibly large creature, its surface covered in runes that seem to shift and change as you watch them. When you lift it to examine it more closely, you feel the weight of ages in your hands. This isn't the horn of winter from the legends, but something older, something that was crafted before the wall was built, before the first long night, before the world was divided into the realms of men and the realms of magic. The second item is a piece of dragon glass, but unlike any you've seen before, most dragon glass is black and sharp, volcanic glass that can cut through almost anything. But this piece is clear as crystal, and within its depths, you can see images moving like memories trapped in amber. You see Jon Snow standing in a circle of ancient trees, but he's not alone. Around him stand figures from legend, the first men who learned to speak with the old gods, the children of the forest who taught them the secrets of the earth, and others whose forms are so strange and wonderful that your mind struggles to comprehend them. The third item is perhaps the most mysterious of all. It's a scroll, but the parchment is unlike anything you've ever seen. It seems to be made of leather so thin and pale that it's almost transparent, and the writing upon it shifts between languages as you watch. Sometimes it's written in the common tongue, sometimes in the old tongue, sometimes in scripts that predate human civilization entirely. But gradually, as you focus on it, the words begin to stabilize, and you realize you're looking at Jon Snow's own handwriting. The scroll is a letter, but not addressed to any living person. It's addressed to the future, to whoever might one day follow his path and seek to understand the choice he made. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of absolute truth. To whoever finds this record, know that I did not choose this path lightly. The crown of winter called to me from the moment I first stepped beyond the wall, but I fought against it for years, believing that my duty lay with the realm of men. I was wrong. My duty was always to something greater, something that encompasses all realms, all peoples, all life itself. I am the guardian of the balance, the keeper of the ancient pact, the king who rules not over subjects but over the forces that keep the world from falling into chaos or ice. I am alone, as I must be, but I am not lost. I am exactly where I belong, doing exactly what I was born to do. The Iron Throne was never meant for me. This crown, this responsibility, this eternal watch, this is my true inheritance. Tell no one of this place, but remember that winter is coming, and winter has its king. The letter is signed not with Jon Snow's name, but with a symbol you've seen before, the crown of fire and ice that appeared in the stone carvings. But below the signature, in smaller script, are words that make your heart race with excitement and terror in equal measure. The crown of winter lies 7 leagues north of the great weirwood, in the circle of trees that grow in the shape of a perfect star. It waits for those who understand that true power comes not from commanding others, but from serving something greater than yourself. Ghost knows the way. Trust him as I trusted him, and he will show you wonders that will change everything you thought you knew about the world. You look up from the scroll to find Ghost watching you with an expression that might be pride. He's led you to these discoveries deliberately, shown you these clues in the exact order you needed to see them. He's not just a guide or a companion. He's a partner in this quest for truth, a keeper of secrets that Jon Snow entrusted to him before accepting the crown that would change him forever. The 4th item in the collection is a map, but like everything else you've found, it's no ordinary map. The parchment seems to be alive, the ink flowing and shifting to show not just the geography of the land, but the currents of magic that flow through it. You can see the great weirwood, where you experienced your first vision, marked with a symbol that pulses with red light. You can see the standing stones, where you heard the whispers, marked with runes that seem to sing even on the silent parchment. And 7 leagues to the north, exactly as the letter promised, there's a circle of trees marked with a crown that seems to be made of starlight itself. But the map shows more than just your destination. It shows the true scope of the realm that Jon Snow now protects. The borders of his kingdom extend far beyond the wall, encompassing not just the lands of the free folk, but territories that no human has ever seen. There are mountains made of ice that never melts, forests where the trees grow downward into the earth, like inverted pyramids, and lakes that reflect not the sky above but the depths of the earth below. This is a realm where the old magic still flows strong, where the barriers between the possible and the impossible have long since dissolved, where a king can rule over the forces of nature themselves. The final item in the collection is a small vial filled with liquid that seems to contain all the colors of the aurora borealis. When you hold it up to the light, the liquid swirls and dances, creating patterns that look almost like writing. You uncork the vial carefully, and immediately the air around you fills with the scent of winter roses and dragonfire, ice and starlight, all the elements that make up the true north. A single drop of the liquid falls onto your hand, and suddenly you can feel everything that Jon Snow felt when he first understood his destiny. The weight of responsibility, the loneliness of absolute power, the joy of finally finding the place where he belongs, and underneath it all, a love so deep and pure that it encompasses the entire world. Not romantic love, but the kind of love that a parent feels for a child, that a guardian feels for those under their protection, that a king feels for a realm that he would die to defend. You understand now why Jon Snow could never return to the world of men. He has become something greater than human, something that exists to protect and preserve the balance that keeps the world from falling into chaos. The crown of winter is not just a symbol of power, it's a sacred trust, a responsibility that transforms whoever accepts it into a force of nature, eternal and unchanging as the seasons themselves. Ghost rises from his position beside the ancient oak and begins walking north again, but now his pace has changed. Where before he moved with the casual confidence of a guide showing familiar territory, now he moves with the solemnity of a pilgrim approaching the most sacred shrine in all the world. You follow, your mind reeling from everything you've discovered, your heart pounding with the knowledge that you're being led toward the ultimate truth about Jon Snow's fate. The crown of winter waits ahead, 7 leagues north of the great weirwood, in a circle of trees that grow in the shape of a perfect star. And there, in that sacred place where the old magic flows strongest, you will finally understand what Jon Snow truly became when he walked away from the Iron Throne and claimed a crown that makes all other crowns look like children's toys. The weight of Jon Snow's letter settles heavily in your mind as you continue following Ghost through the increasingly mystical landscape. The words echo in your thoughts with each step, and gradually a picture begins to form that seems to make perfect sense. Jon Snow, overwhelmed by the pressures of kingship and the revelation of his true parentage, sought solitude in the north. He found peace in the ancient forests, connected with the old magic that flows through these lands, and chose to live as a hermit king, protecting the realm from a distance while avoiding the corrupting influence of political power. It's a beautiful story, really. The noble bastard who discovered he was a prince, who could have claimed the greatest throne in the world, instead choosing simplicity and service over glory and gold. He became a guardian of the wilderness, a protector of the old ways, a king who ruled over wolves and trees rather than men and castles. It explains the strange reports from the north, the stories of a white wolf and a shadowy figure, the sense of peace that has settled over the lands beyond the wall. You find yourself nodding as you walk, satisfied with this interpretation. It fits with everything you know about Jon Snow's character, his reluctance to seek power, his deep connection to the north, his sense of duty that transcends personal ambition. He didn't abandon his responsibilities. He found a new way to fulfill them, one that allowed him to serve the realm while staying true to his nature. Ghost leads you to a sheltered grove where the trees form a natural windbreak, and you decide to rest for a while, to process everything you've learned. You sit against the trunk of an ancient pine, its bark warm despite the surrounding cold, and pull out your journal to record your thoughts. The story you write is compelling, satisfying, the kind of tale that historians would nod approvingly. The king who chose service over glory. The crown of winter as a metaphor for the weight of responsibility. Jon Snow finding his true calling in the wilderness, becoming a guardian of the old ways, a protector of the balance between civilization and the wild. But even as you write, something feels wrong. The words don't flow as smoothly as they usually do, and your hand hesitates over certain passages. There's a disconnect between what you think you understand and what you feel in your bones. The evidence you've found, the letter, the artifacts, the visions, they all point towards something far more significant than a simple hermit king living in the woods. Ghost seems to sense your internal struggle. The great direwolf approaches and sits beside you, his massive form radiating warmth in the cold air. His red eyes fix on your face with an intensity that makes you feel as if he's reading your thoughts, and in that gaze, you see something that might be disappointment. Not anger, not impatience, but the kind of gentle disappointment that a teacher might feel when a promising student settles for the easy answer, instead of pushing toward the difficult truth. You think I'm missing something, don't you? You ask aloud, feeling slightly foolish for speaking to a wolf, even one as extraordinary as Ghost. You think Jon Snow's story is bigger than what I've written here. Ghost's response is subtle but unmistakable. He turns his great head toward the north, toward the direction you've been traveling, and his ears prick forward as if he's listening to something you can't hear. Then he looks back at you, and in his eyes, you see not just intelligence but a kind of ancient wisdom, the accumulation of experiences and knowledge that spans far beyond what any ordinary creature could possess. You close your journal and look around the grove with new eyes. Now that you're really paying attention, you notice things that don't fit with your simple interpretation. The trees here don't grow in natural patterns. They're arranged in deliberate formations, creating geometric shapes that speak of conscious design. The snow on the ground bears impressions that aren't random, but form symbols and patterns that seem to pulse with their own inner light. and in the distance, you can hear sounds that don't belong to any natural forest. Whispers in languages you don't recognize. Music that seems to come from the earth itself. And underneath it all, a rhythmic thrumming that might be the heartbeat of the world. An old woman emerges from the forest as if she's been waiting for you to notice her. She's small and bent with age, her hair white as fresh snow, her eyes the pale blue of winter ice. She moves with the careful grace of someone who has spent a lifetime in the wilderness, her feet making no sound on the forest floor. She's dressed in furs that seem to shift and change color as she moves, and around her neck hangs a pendant that looks like a miniature version of the crown symbol you've been seeing throughout your journey. "You're the one who's been following the White Wolf," she says, her voice carrying the slight accent of the free folk. "The one who thinks he understands the king beyond the wall." "I'm trying to understand," you reply, getting to your feet out of respect for her obvious age and wisdom. "I've found some clues, some evidence about what Jon Snow became when he came north." The old woman laughs, a sound like wind chimes made of ice. "Evidence, clues. You scholars always think the truth can be found in things you can touch and see. But the truth about the King of Winter isn't something you can write down in your books. It's something you have to feel, something you have to experience, something that changes you just by knowing it." She approaches Ghost, and the great direwolf lowers his massive head to allow her to scratch behind his ears. The familiarity of the gesture suggests that they've known each other for a long time, that she's been part of this story from the beginning. "I knew him when he was just Jon Snow," she continues, her pale eyes growing distant with memory. "Brave boy, noble heart, but broken by the world's cruelty. He came north thinking he was running away from his destiny, but he was really running toward it. The crown of winter had been waiting for him since the day he was born, maybe since before he was born. Some destinies are older than the people who fulfill them." "But what is the crown of winter?" you ask. "Is it real? Is it metaphorical? I've seen the symbols, read the letter, but I still don't understand what it actually is." The old woman's expression grows serious, and she looks at you with eyes that seem to see straight through to your soul. "You're asking the wrong questions, chronicler. You want to know what the crown of winter is, but you should be asking what it does. You want to know if Jon Snow is living as a hermit, but you should be asking what he's protecting us from. You want to understand his choice, but you should be asking what choice he really had." She turns to Ghost, and the great direwolf seems to understand some unspoken communication. He rises to his feet and begins walking deeper into the forest, but his pace has changed again. Where before he moved with the casual confidence of a guide, now he moves with the urgency of someone who has important work to do. "Follow him," the old woman says. "But know that once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Once you understand what Jon Snow really became, you can never again be content with simple stories about hermit kings and noble sacrifices. The truth is bigger than that, more terrible and more wonderful than anything you can imagine." "What do you mean?" you ask. But she's already fading back into the forest, her form becoming translucent like morning mist. "The sleeping king is waking," she calls back, her voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The balance is shifting. The old magic is stirring, and the King of Winter has work to do." You hurry to catch up with Ghost, your mind racing with new questions. The old woman's words have shattered your comfortable interpretation of Jon Snow's story, but they've also opened up possibilities that make your heart race with excitement and terror in equal measure. What if Jon Snow isn't just living as a hermit in the woods? What if he's become something far more significant, something that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy? The forest around you seems to respond to your new understanding. The trees grow taller and more ancient, their branches reaching toward the sky like the arms of supplicants. The snow falls in patterns that look almost like writing, and the very air seems to hum with potential. You're no longer just following a path through the wilderness. You're being drawn towards something that will change everything you thought you knew about power, about kingship, about the very nature of the world itself. Ghost leads you to the edge of a vast clearing, where the trees form a perfect circle around a space that seems to exist outside the normal laws of nature. The snow here doesn't fall from the sky. It rises from the ground, swirling upward in spirals that create temporary sculptures of incredible beauty. The aurora borealis dances overhead even though it's still daylight, and the very air seems to shimmer with colors that have no names. In the center of the clearing stands a single tree, but this isn't like any tree you've ever seen. It's perfectly white, its bark smooth as polished marble, its branches reaching in all directions like the arms of a star, and carved into its trunk, at exactly the height where a man's heart would be, is a symbol that makes your breath catch in your throat. It's the crown of winter, but not as you've seen it before. This version is complete, perfect, radiating power that you can feel even from a distance. And below it, in script that seems to burn with its own inner fire, are words in the common tongue that make your hands tremble as you read them. Here stands the King of Winter, guardian of the balance, keeper of the ancient pact. He who was Jon Snow, who was Aegon Targaryen, who is now something greater than either. His kingdom has no borders. His subjects are the forces of nature themselves. His crown is made of starlight and responsibility. He rules not from a throne, but from the very heart of the world, and his reign will last until the end of time itself. You realize that your simple story about a hermit king was not just wrong, it was laughably inadequate. Jon Snow didn't retreat from power. He claimed the greatest power imaginable, and in doing so, he became something that transcends every definition of kingship that the world has ever known. Ghost sits beside the white tree and looks back at you with eyes that seem to hold the wisdom of ages. In his gaze, you see patience, understanding, and something that might be pride. He's brought you this far, shown you enough to shatter your preconceptions, and now he's waiting to see if you have the courage to seek the full truth. The crown of winter waits ahead, and with it, the most incredible revelation in the history of the world. Jon Snow's real story is just beginning. The white tree stands before you like a gateway to understanding, its carved crown seeming to pulse with life in the strange light of the clearing. But Ghost doesn't approach it. Instead, he circles around the edge of the sacred space, his massive paws finding a path that seems to exist in the spaces between the visible and the mystical. You follow, understanding somehow that this tree is not your destination but a marker, a sign that you're moving deeper into a realm where the old magic flows as freely as mountain streams. The path Ghost leads you on defies every law of nature you thought you understood. You walk through groves where the trees grow with their roots in the air and their branches buried in the earth, their leaves shimmering with colors that shift and change, like the aurora borealis. You cross streams that flow upward, their crystalline waters defying gravity as they spiral toward the sky in helixes of liquid light. The very ground beneath your feet seems alive, responding to your presence with subtle shifts in temperature and texture, as if the earth itself is aware of your passage. As you journey deeper into this mystical realm, the boundaries between day and night begin to blur. The sky overhead shifts through cycles of twilight and starlight, dawn and dusk, but never quite reaches the harsh brightness of full day or the complete darkness of midnight. It's as if you've entered a place where time itself moves differently, where the normal rules of existence have been gently set aside to make room for something far more ancient and profound. Ghost leads you to a series of ice caves that tunnel deep into the heart of a mountain that seems to be made entirely of crystallized starlight. The walls of these caves are covered in carvings that make the symbols you've seen before look like crude scratches by comparison. These are works of art that span centuries, maybe millennia, telling the story of the North in images that seem to move and breathe with their own inner life. The first chamber you enter tells the story of the original Long Night, but not as you've heard it before. These carvings show the truth that was lost to history, the real reason why the darkness came, and how it was finally defeated. You see the first men making a pact with forces beyond their understanding, children of the forest working alongside beings of ice and fire to create a balance that would hold the world together. And at the center of it all, a figure that looks remarkably like Jon Snow, wearing a crown that seems to be made of frozen starlight. But these aren't just historical records. As you study the carvings more closely, you begin to understand that they're prophecies, visions of what was always meant to come to pass. The Long Night wasn't just a single event in the distant past. It was a cycle, a recurring pattern that the world experiences whenever the balance between ice and fire is threatened. And each time the darkness comes, a guardian must rise to restore the balance, to take on the responsibility of keeping the world from falling into chaos. The second chamber reveals the true nature of the wall, and what you discover there makes you stagger with the magnitude of the revelation. The wall wasn't built just to keep the wildlings out of the Seven Kingdoms. It was built to contain something far more powerful and dangerous, a force that exists in the spaces between the physical and the mystical, between the world of men and the realm of the old gods. The wall is a prison, but it's also a gateway, and it requires a guardian who can exist in both worlds simultaneously. Ghost sits in the center of this chamber, his massive form dwarfed by the scale of the carvings around him. His red eyes reflect the strange light that emanates from the walls, and in that reflection, you see layers of meaning that your conscious mind struggles to process. He's not just Jon Snow's companion. He's his anchor, the part of him that remains connected to the world of flesh and blood, even as the rest of him transforms into something far more elemental. The third chamber contains the most incredible sight of all. The entire space is filled with what appears to be a three-dimensional map of the world, but not the world as you know it. This is the world as it truly exists, showing not just the physical landscape but the currents of magic that flow through it, the connections between all living things, the invisible threads that bind the past to the present and the present to the future. You can see the Seven Kingdoms, but they're just a small part of a much larger tapestry, a single thread in a pattern that encompasses the entire world. At the center of this mystical map, connected to every other part by streams of flowing light, there's a crown that hovers in the air like a miniature star. The crown of winter, but not as a physical object. Here, it's revealed as what it truly is, a focal point of responsibility and power that connects the one who wears it to every aspect of the natural world. The king who claims this crown doesn't rule over subjects. He becomes part of the world itself, a conscious guardian of the balance that keeps everything in existence. You spend hours in these chambers, studying the carvings, trying to understand the full scope of what you're seeing. Ghost waits patiently, seeming to understand that you need time to process these revelations. Gradually, a picture begins to form in your mind, an understanding of Jon Snow's transformation that goes far beyond anything you could have imagined. When you finally emerge from the caves, the world outside seems different. The colors are more vivid, the sounds more meaningful, the very air more alive with possibility. You're no longer just traveling through a forest, you're moving through a living entity, a conscious realm that exists to support and nurture the one who has accepted the ultimate responsibility. Ghost leads you to a series of sacred sites that reveal the true scope of Jon Snow's kingdom. You visit groves where the trees grow in perfect spirals, their branches reaching toward the sky in mathematical precision that speaks of intelligence behind their growth. You see lakes that reflect not the sky above, but the depths of the earth below, their waters serving as windows into the underground rivers of magic that flow through the world. You witness geysers that shoot not water but pure light into the air, creating temporary rainbows that spell out messages in languages that predate human speech. At each site, you find evidence of Jon Snow's presence, but not in the way you expected. There are no footprints, no campsites, no physical traces of his passage. Instead, you find a sense of harmony, of balance, of watchful protection that pervades every aspect of the environment. The trees grow healthier here, the water runs clearer, the very air seems to hum with contentment. This is what a realm looks like when it's ruled by someone who truly understands the nature of kingship, someone who sees his role not as taking from his subjects, but as giving everything of himself to ensure their well-being. The wildlife in this realm reflects the same harmony. You see deer that seem to be made of crystallized moonlight, their antlers shimmering with inner fire, wolves that move like flowing water, their fur changing color to match the seasons, birds that sing in harmonies so complex they seem to be performing symphonies written by the old gods themselves. And all of them, every creature you encounter, shows the same signs of health and contentment that mark a realm under the protection of a true guardian. But perhaps the most remarkable discovery comes when you reach a hot spring that bubbles up from the depths of the earth, its waters warm enough to create a pocket of eternal spring in the heart of the winter landscape. The spring is surrounded by flowers that bloom in defiance of the cold, their petals shifting through every color of the rainbow as they sway in the warm breeze. And there, growing beside the spring, is a garden that takes your breath away. These are winter roses, the blue flowers that were said to be Lyanna Stark's favorite, the flowers that crown her statue in the crypts of Winterfell. But these roses are different from any you've seen before. They seem to be made of crystallized starlight, their petals translucent and glowing with their own inner fire. And as you watch them sway in the breeze, you realize that they're not just flowers, they're a memorial, a living tribute to the woman whose love and sacrifice made Jon Snow's existence possible. But they're also a message, a reminder of what Jon Snow gave up when he accepted the crown of winter. He can never again know the simple pleasure of giving flowers to someone he loves, never again experience the joy of human connection that makes life meaningful for ordinary people. The roses are beautiful, but they're also heartbreaking, a symbol of all the ordinary happiness that comes with the price of extraordinary power. Ghost approaches the roses and gently nuzzles one of the glowing blooms, his massive form surprisingly gentle as he pays tribute to the memory of a woman he never knew, but whose legacy shaped the destiny of his master. In that moment, you understand something profound about the nature of sacrifice, about the price that must be paid by those who accept the greatest responsibilities. The crown of winter grants its wearer power beyond imagination, but it also demands a sacrifice that goes to the very core of what it means to be human. Jon Snow didn't just become a king, he became a force of nature, eternal and unchanging, forever separated from the world of ordinary joys and sorrows. The roses remind him of what he gave up, but they also remind him of why he made that sacrifice. Love, not for one person but for all of existence, the kind of love that can only be expressed through absolute dedication to the well-being of others. As you leave the Garden of Winter Roses, you carry with you a deeper understanding of Jon Snow's transformation. He didn't retreat from the world. He accepted a responsibility that encompasses the entire world, becoming a guardian whose protection extends to every living thing, every breath of wind, every drop of water, every grain of sand. The crown of winter made him the most powerful being in existence, but it also made him the loneliest, forever watching over a world that will never know his sacrifice. The path ahead leads deeper into the heart of the mystical realm, towards secrets that will reveal the full scope of Jon Snow's destiny. But already you understand that this is not just a story about a king who chose duty over desire. This is a story about transformation, about the price of ultimate power, about the kind of love that can only be expressed through complete self-sacrifice. Ghost's red eyes glow brighter in the ethereal light of the realm, and you know that the greatest revelations are still to come. The crown of winter waits ahead, and with it the truth about the most incredible transformation in the history of the world. The garden of winter roses fades behind you as Ghost leads you deeper into the mystical realm, but their ethereal glow seems to have awakened something in the very fabric of the world around you. The air itself begins to shimmer with memories, and you realize that you're no longer just walking through a forest. You're walking through time itself, through layers of history that have been preserved in the ancient magic of the true north, like insects trapped in amber. The first echo comes as you enter a grove where the trees grow in perfect alignment, their trunks forming corridors that stretch into infinity. As you walk between them, the present begins to blur with the past, and suddenly you're witnessing events that happened centuries ago. You see the first Stark king, Bran the Builder, standing in this very grove, but he's not alone. Around him stand figures that your mind struggles to process, beings of such age and power that they seem to exist partially in this world and partially in realms beyond human comprehension. The vision shows you the original pact that created the balance between ice and fire, the agreement that would hold the world together for millennia to come. But this wasn't just a treaty between men and the children of the forest. This was a cosmic arrangement, a restructuring of the fundamental forces that govern existence itself. Bran the Builder wasn't just founding a dynasty, he was accepting the first iteration of the Crown of Winter, becoming the prototype for what Jon Snow would eventually become. But the vision reveals something even more profound. The crown that Bran accepted wasn't meant to be permanent. It was designed to be passed down through the generations, but not from father to son in the traditional way. The Crown of Winter chooses its own bearers, waiting sometimes for centuries until the right person is born, someone with the exact combination of bloodline, character, and destiny needed to bear its weight. Ghost stops walking and turns to face you, his red eyes blazing with an intensity that seems to burn away the barriers between past and present. In his gaze, you see the accumulated wisdom of all the kings who have worn the Crown of Winter, all the guardians who have sacrificed their humanity to preserve the balance, and you understand that Jon Snow is not the first to accept this responsibility. He is the latest in a line of guardians that stretches back to the dawn of human civilization. The second echo comes as you continue through the grove, and this time you witness the original long night, but not as the histories describe it. The darkness that fell over the world wasn't just an absence of light, it was a fundamental disruption of the balance, a tearing in the fabric of reality itself that threatened to unmake everything that existed. The Night King of legend wasn't an evil sorcerer seeking to conquer the world. He was a guardian who had been corrupted by the weight of his responsibility, who had become lost in the darkness he was meant to contain. You see the war that followed, but it wasn't a simple conflict between good and evil. It was a cosmic struggle to restore the balance, to repair the damage that had been done to the fundamental structure of reality. The hero who defeated the Night King wasn't just a warrior with a magic sword, he was another bearer of the Crown of Winter, someone who understood that the only way to stop the darkness was to become the light, to accept a responsibility so great that it would transform him into something beyond human comprehension. The vision shows you the moment of victory, but it's not the triumphant scene you might expect. The hero stands alone on a battlefield covered in ice and starlight, wearing a crown that seems to be made of crystallized time itself. Around him the world begins to heal, but he remains forever changed, forever separated from the humanity he sacrificed to save. The crown grants him the power to maintain the balance, but it also condemns him to eternal solitude, watching over a world that will never know his sacrifice. The third echo reveals the cyclical nature of the crown of winter, showing you how it has been passed down through the ages, sometimes skipping generations, sometimes waiting centuries for the right bearer to be born. You see kings and queens from a dozen different cultures, each one accepting the crown in their own time, each one making the same ultimate sacrifice. A northern queen who became the guardian of the ice during a time when the world grew too hot. A southern king who accepted the crown when the balance shifted too far toward winter. A child born beyond the wall who grew up to become the protector of the ancient magic when it was threatened by the spread of human civilization. But all of these guardians share the same essential nature, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. They are chosen not for their strength or their wisdom, but for their capacity to love something greater than themselves, to find meaning in service rather than power, to accept loneliness as the price of protecting others. Ghost leads you to a circle of standing stones that seem to be made of crystallized music, their surfaces vibrating with harmonies that you can feel in your bones. As you approach, the stones begin to resonate with increasing intensity, and suddenly the air around you is filled with voices singing in languages that predate human speech. The song they sing is the true history of the world, the story of balance and sacrifice that has been hidden beneath the surface of recorded history. The song tells you that the crown of winter is not just a symbol of power, it is a living entity, a consciousness that exists to preserve the fundamental harmony of existence. It chooses its bearers carefully, waiting for someone who can bear the weight of absolute responsibility without being corrupted by it. And when it finds such a person, it offers them a choice. They can accept the crown and become a guardian of the balance, or they can turn away and live a normal human life, leaving the world to find another protector. But the song also reveals the true nature of the choice that Jon Snow made. He didn't just accept the crown of winter because he was the only one who could bear it. He accepted it because he understood that the world was entering a new phase, a time when the old balance would no longer be sufficient. The events of recent years, the return of dragons, the breaking of ancient barriers, the awakening of magic that had slept for centuries, all of these things had created a new configuration of forces that required a new kind of guardian. Jon Snow's unique heritage, his combination of Stark and Targaryen blood, his experience with both ice and fire, his understanding of both the civilized world and the wild places beyond, all of these things made him the perfect candidate for this new iteration of the Crown of Winter. He is not just continuing the ancient tradition of guardianship, he is evolving it, adapting it to meet the challenges of a changing world. The song fades, but its message remains burned into your consciousness. Jon Snow didn't abandon his destiny. When he walked beyond the wall, he embraced it, accepting a responsibility that makes his potential claim to the Iron Throne look like a child's game. The Crown of Winter grants its bearer dominion over the forces of nature themselves, but it also demands a sacrifice that goes to the very core of what it means to be human. As you leave the circle of singing stones, you carry with you a new understanding of the cyclical nature of history, of the way that the same essential conflicts play out again and again across the generations. The Crown of Winter represents the eternal struggle to maintain balance in a world that is constantly changing, the endless cycle of sacrifice and renewal that keeps existence itself from falling into chaos. Ghost leads you to a grove where the trees grow in the shape of a perfect spiral, their branches interweaving to create a natural cathedral that seems to reach toward the very heart of the sky. The light here is different from anywhere else you've been, not the harsh brightness of the sun or the soft glow of the moon, but something that seems to come from the space between the stars, ancient and eternal and infinitely patient. In the center of this grove stands a pool of water that reflects not the sky above, but the depths of the earth below. The water is perfectly still, its surface like a mirror made of liquid starlight, and as you approach, you realize that this is not just a pool, it is a window, a viewing portal that allows you to see into the heart of the world itself, to witness the fundamental forces that keep everything in existence. You kneel beside the pool and peer into its depths, and what you see there takes your breath away. The earth is not just rock and soil and magma. It is a living entity, a conscious being that exists to nurture and protect all the life that depends on it. And at the very center of this vast consciousness, connected to every tree, every stone, every drop of water, every breath of air, you see a figure that you recognize immediately. Jon Snow sits on a throne that is not built of iron or gold or precious stones. It is made of the very substance of the world itself, roots and branches, and crystallized starlight, woven together into a seat of power that encompasses all of existence. But he is not the Jon Snow you remember from the stories. He has been transformed by the crown of winter, becoming something that is simultaneously more and less than human. His hair is white as fresh snow, his eyes the pale blue of winter ice, and his skin has taken on a luminous quality that seems to come from within. He wears the crown of winter, but it is not a physical object that rests on his head. It is a part of him, woven into his very being, transforming him into a living embodiment of the balance that holds the world together. Around him, the forces of nature move in perfect harmony. Rivers of liquid light flow through the air, carrying nutrients to distant forests. Streams of crystallized music spread out like a web, connecting every living thing to every other living thing. And at the center of it all, Jon Snow sits in perfect stillness, his consciousness expanded to encompass the entire world, his awareness touching every aspect of existence. But even as you marvel at the scope of his transformation, you can see the price he has paid. There is a profound loneliness in his posture, a sense of isolation that comes from being connected to everything and yet belonging to nothing. He has become the guardian of the balance, but in doing so, he has separated himself from the ordinary joys and sorrows that make life meaningful for normal people. The vision fades, but its message remains clear. Jon Snow didn't retreat from the world when he accepted the crown of winter. He became the world, taking on a responsibility that encompasses every aspect of existence. He is the king who rules over the forces of nature themselves, the guardian who maintains the balance that keeps the world from falling into chaos or ice. Ghost rises from his position beside the pool and begins walking again. But now his movements have taken on a different quality. Where before he moved with the confidence of a guide showing familiar territory, now he moves with the reverence of a pilgrim approaching the most sacred shrine in existence. You follow, understanding that you are being led toward the ultimate revelation, the final truth about Jon Snow's transformation. The crown of winter waits ahead, and with it, the most incredible secret in the history of the world. Jon Snow has become something that transcends every definition of kingship, something that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy and the Seven Kingdoms seem like a small corner of a much larger realm. The King of Winter, the guardian of the balance, the one who sacrificed his humanity to save the world itself. The vision of Jon Snow, transformed into something beyond human comprehension, fades from the mystical pool, but its impact reverberates through every fiber of your being. You understand now that everything you thought you knew about power, about kingship, about the very nature of leadership itself, has been turned upside down. The Iron Throne, with all its political intrigue and bloodshed, suddenly seems like nothing more than an elaborate game played by children who have no understanding of true responsibility. Ghost leads you away from the pool of visions, but the world around you has changed yet again. The trees here grow in formations that seem to defy the laws of physics, their branches interweaving in complex patterns that create bridges and archways of living wood. The very air shimmers with an energy that makes your skin tingle, and you realize that you're approaching something of immense significance, something that will shatter your understanding of reality itself. The path leads to a structure that takes your breath away, a building that seems to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. At first glance, it appears to be a simple wooden hall, the kind of structure that might house a northern lord's family during the winter months. But as you look more closely, you realize that the building is constantly shifting, revealing new rooms and corridors that shouldn't be able to exist in the same space. It's as if the structure exists in a state of constant possibility, showing you different versions of itself depending on how you approach it. Ghost approaches the main entrance, and the great wooden doors swing open without any visible mechanism. Beyond the threshold, you can see a great hall that stretches impossibly far in all directions, its walls lined with tapestries that seem to move and change as you watch them. The ceiling disappears into darkness overhead, but you can hear the sound of wind and starlight moving through spaces that shouldn't exist. As you enter the hall, you're struck by the profound silence that fills the space. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of a deeper quiet that speaks of ancient wisdom and terrible knowledge. The floor beneath your feet is made of stones that glow with their own inner light, each one carved with symbols that seem to shift and change as you walk over them. The air is warm, despite the eternal winter outside, and you can smell the scent of winter roses and dragonfire, ice and starlight. At the far end of the hall, raised on a dais of crystallized time, stands a throne that defies every expectation you might have had. It's not made of iron or gold or any material substance. Instead, it seems to be constructed from the very concept of responsibility itself, taking the form of intertwined branches and roots that pulse with the heartbeat of the world. The throne is empty, but you can feel the presence of its occupant as clearly as if he were sitting there before you. But it's the walls of the hall that reveal the most shocking truth. They are covered with murals that tell the story of Jon Snow's transformation, but not in the way you expected. These paintings show that his acceptance of the crown of winter wasn't a recent event. The images reveal that he has been connected to this destiny his entire life, that every major event in his story was carefully orchestrated to prepare him for this moment. The first mural shows Jon as a child at Winterfell, but standing invisible behind him are figures that you now recognize as previous bearers of the crown of winter. They are guiding his development, influencing his choices, ensuring that he grows up with the exact combination of strength and compassion, wisdom and humility that will be needed to bear the ultimate responsibility. The second mural depicts his time with the Night's Watch, but the scene is more complex than the history book's record. The wall itself is revealed as a training ground, a place where potential guardians are tested and prepared for their true calling. Jon's experiences there, his struggles with oath and duty, his encounters with the wild magic beyond the wall, all of these were part of a carefully designed education that would prepare him for the crown of winter. The third mural shows the revelation of his true parentage, but with a twist that makes your heart race. Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen didn't just fall in love and create a child. They were chosen by the crown of winter itself, their union orchestrated by forces beyond human understanding to create the perfect candidate for the ultimate guardianship. Jon Snow wasn't just born to be a king, he was born to be the king, the one who would accept a responsibility that no Iron Throne could ever represent. The fourth mural reveals the true nature of his resurrection after his death at Castle Black. The magic that brought him back to life wasn't just the power of the Lord of Light or the will of the old gods. It was the crown of winter itself, refusing to let its chosen guardian die before he could fulfill his destiny. His death and resurrection weren't just miraculous events. They were the final steps in his transformation, the process that would allow him to accept a responsibility that requires someone who has experienced both life and death, both hope and despair. The fifth mural shows his time as king in the north, but reveals it as nothing more than a rehearsal for his true calling. The political struggles, the military campaigns, the weight of leadership, all of these were training exercises designed to prepare him for the infinitely greater responsibility that awaited him. The Iron Throne was never his true inheritance. It was a distraction, a test to see if he would choose the easy path of earthly power or the difficult path of cosmic responsibility. But it's the sixth mural that reveals the most shocking truth of all. It shows the moment when Jon Snow finally accepted the crown of winter, but he's not alone. Standing around him are the ghosts of everyone he ever loved, everyone he ever lost, everyone he ever failed to save. Ned Stark, Ygritte, his brothers of the Night's Watch, all of them are there, not as reproaches for his choices, but as witnesses to his ultimate sacrifice. The mural shows that Jon's acceptance of the crown of winter wasn't just about saving the world. It was about honoring the memory of everyone who had died to get him to that moment, about ensuring that their sacrifices weren't in vain. He became the King of Winter, not because he wanted power, but because he understood that someone had to accept the ultimate responsibility, and he was the only one capable of bearing it. Ghost approaches the empty throne and sits before it, his massive form perfectly still, as he gazes up at the seat of ultimate power. In his eyes, you see not just loyalty to his master, but understanding of the choice that Jon Snow made. Ghost could have remained with him, could have shared in his eternal watch, but instead he chose to return to the world, to serve as a bridge between the realm of men and the realm of the King of Winter. As you stand in that impossible hall, surrounded by the truth of Jon Snow's transformation, you feel the weight of knowledge settling on your shoulders like a heavy cloak. You understand now that the stories told in the South, the legends of the bastard who became a king and then walked away from power, are not just incomplete, they are fundamentally wrong. Jon Snow didn't walk away from anything, he walked toward the greatest responsibility in the history of the world. The crown of winter grants its bearer dominion over the forces of nature themselves, but it also demands a sacrifice that goes to the very core of what it means to be human. Jon Snow gave up his name, his identity, his very humanity to become something greater and more terrible than any earthly king. He became the guardian of the balance, the keeper of the cosmic order, the one who ensures that the world continues to exist from one day to the next. But the murals also reveal the true scope of the threat that Jon Snow now protects the world from. The images show forces of chaos and destruction that make the White Walkers look like minor annoyances, cosmic entities that exist to unmake the very fabric of reality. The Crown of Winter doesn't just grant power, it creates a barrier between the world and these forces of dissolution, using the life force of its bearer to maintain the boundaries that keep existence itself intact. You realize that Jon Snow's transformation wasn't just about accepting power, it was about accepting the ultimate sacrifice, becoming a living shield between the world and the forces that would destroy it. He is no longer just Jon Snow or even Aegon Targaryen. He is the King of Winter, the guardian of the balance, the one who stands eternal watch at the very edge of existence. The hall begins to fade around you, but the truth remains burned into your consciousness. Jon Snow didn't retreat from his destiny when he walked beyond the wall. He embraced it, accepting a responsibility that makes his potential claim to the Iron Throne look like a child's game. The Crown of Winter is not just a symbol of power. It is the weight of the world itself, the ultimate expression of love and sacrifice and duty. Ghost rises from his position before the throne and begins walking toward another exit, his red eyes glowing with an intensity that seems to burn away the last of your illusions. You follow, understanding that you have been witness to one of the most profound truths in the history of the world. Jon Snow is not lost to the north. He has become the north and the south, and every direction in between. He is the King of Winter, and his kingdom is the entire world. The greatest revelation still awaits, But already you understand that this is not just a story about a man who chose duty over desire. This is a story about transformation, about the price of ultimate power, about the kind of love that can only be expressed through complete self-sacrifice. Jon Snow has become something that transcends every definition of kingship, something that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy, and the Seven Kingdoms seem like a small corner of a much larger realm. The impossible hall fades behind you like a dream, half remembered, but its revelations continue to reshape your understanding of everything you thought you knew about the world. Ghost leads you through a landscape that defies every law of nature, where the very ground beneath your feet seems to pulse with the rhythm of a cosmic heartbeat. The air shimmers with possibilities, and you realize that you're no longer just walking through the physical world. You're moving through the hidden architecture of reality itself, the secret framework that holds all of existence together. The path leads to a grove where the trees grow in formations that seem to spell out words in languages that predate human speech. As you walk between these living letters, your mind begins to piece together the fragments of truth that you've been gathering throughout your journey. The story of Jon Snow's transformation is not just remarkable, it's part of a pattern that stretches back to the very beginning of time, a cosmic conspiracy that has been unfolding for millennia. The first revelation comes as you reach the center of the grove, where a single tree stands alone, its trunk twisted into the shape of a double helix that reaches toward the sky, like a ladder made of living wood. The bark of this tree is covered in symbols that seem to move and shift as you watch them, telling a story that makes your blood run cold with its implications. The symbols reveal that the crown of winter is not just a recent creation forged in response to the specific challenges of Jon Snow's time. It is part of an ancient system, a network of power and responsibility that has been guiding the development of the world since the moment the first spark of consciousness ignited in the darkness of the void. The crown is one of several artifacts, each one designed to maintain a different aspect of the cosmic balance. But the symbols also reveal something more disturbing. The system is failing. The other artifacts, the other guardians, the other protectors of the balance, they have been lost or corrupted or destroyed over the centuries. The crown of winter is the last remaining safeguard, the final barrier between the world and the forces of absolute chaos that exist beyond the edges of reality. Jon Snow's transformation was not just about accepting great power. It was about accepting the ultimate responsibility, becoming the sole guardian of a balance that once required dozens of protectors to maintain. He is not just the king of winter, he is the last king, the final guardian, the one who must bear the weight of the entire cosmic order on his shoulders. Ghost approaches the twisted tree and places his paw against its bark, and suddenly the air around you is filled with whispers in voices that seem to come from the very foundations of the world. The whispers tell you the true story of Jon Snow's bloodline, and what you learn makes you stagger with the magnitude of the revelation. The stark blood that flows through Jon's veins is not just the heritage of an ancient northern house. It is the legacy of the first guardians, the bloodline that was specifically created to produce individuals capable of bearing the crown of winter. Every Stark who ever lived was a potential guardian, but the bloodline had been weakened over the centuries, diluted by marriages and political alliances that drew it away from its original purpose. But the Targaryen blood that Jon inherited from his father represents something even more significant. The Dragon Kings were not just conquerors who used magic to dominate the world. They were the descendants of the original Fire Guardians, the protectors of the flame that keeps the cosmic darkness at bay. Their dragons were not just weapons of war. They were manifestations of the fundamental force of creation, the spark of life that brings order out of chaos. The union of ice and fire in Jon Snow's bloodline was not an accident of love and lust. It was the culmination of a plan that had been in motion for thousands of years, a careful breeding program designed to create someone who could bear the ultimate responsibility. Jon Snow is not just the product of two great houses. He is the synthesis of all the guardian bloodlines, the one person in the world who possesses the genetic and spiritual heritage necessary to maintain the cosmic balance. But the whispers reveal an even more shocking truth. The three-eyed raven, the ancient entity that guided Bran Stark and influenced so many of the events in recent history, was not just a mystical advisor. He was the architect of the entire plan, the consciousness that had been working for centuries to ensure that Jon Snow would be born at the right time, in the right place, with the right combination of experiences and bloodlines necessary to accept the crown of winter. Every major event in Jon Snow's life, from his birth to his death to his resurrection, was orchestrated by the three-eyed raven to prepare him for his ultimate destiny. The bastard's shame that drove him to the wall, the oaths that taught him about duty and sacrifice, the love that showed him what he would have to give up, the death that freed him from all earthly obligations, all of these were part of a carefully designed curriculum that would prepare him for the greatest responsibility in the history of the world. The manipulation goes deeper than you could have imagined. The three-eyed raven influenced the actions of kings and queens, started wars and ended them, guided the rise and fall of dynasties, all to ensure that the right people would be in the right places at the right times to create the circumstances necessary for Jon Snow's transformation. The entire recorded history of Westeros is not just a chronicle of human ambition and folly, it is the story of a cosmic plan unfolding across the centuries. But the whispers also reveal the true nature of the threat that Jon Snow now protects the world from. Beyond the edges of reality, in the spaces between the stars, there exist entities of such alien intelligence and malevolent power that they make the White Walkers look like lost children. These entities exist to unmake creation itself, to reduce the ordered universe back to the primordial chaos from which it emerged. The barriers that keep these entities at bay are not physical walls or magical spells. They are the very concepts of order and meaning and purpose that give existence its structure, and those concepts must be maintained by conscious will, by someone who understands the nature of the cosmic balance and has the power to preserve it. The crown of winter is not just a symbol of authority, it is the focal point of that conscious will, the crystallization of the determination to keep the world in existence. Ghost leads you to a clearing, where the ground is covered in what appears to be a vast map made of living starlight. The map shows not just the geography of the world, but the hidden connections that bind all things together. Rivers of light flow between distant locations, connecting forests to mountains, oceans to deserts, cities to wilderness. And at the center of this vast network of connections, there is a single point of brilliant radiance that you know instinctively represents Jon Snow's location. From this central point, threads of light extend in all directions, connecting to every other point on the map. You realize that you're looking at a representation of Jon Snow's consciousness, expanded to encompass the entire world. He is not just ruling over his kingdom, he has become his kingdom, his awareness touching every aspect of existence, his will maintaining the balance that keeps everything in its proper place. But the map also shows the true scope of the threat that he faces. At the edges of the Starlight Network, there are areas of absolute darkness, voids that seem to consume light itself. These are the breach points, the places where the entities of chaos are trying to break through into the ordered universe, and you can see that Jon Snow's will is the only thing holding them back. His consciousness spread thin across the entire network, maintaining barriers that would collapse without his constant vigilance. The third revelation comes as you study the map more closely, and what you see makes your heart race with terror and awe in equal measure. The darkness at the edges of the network is not static. It's growing, pressing against the barriers with increasing force. The entities of chaos are not just trying to break through. They are succeeding, slowly but inexorably, wearing away at the foundations of reality itself. Jon Snow's transformation into the King of Winter was not just about accepting great power. It was about accepting a burden that is literally killing him, slowly draining away his life force to maintain barriers that grow weaker with each passing day. He is not just the guardian of the balance, he is the sacrifice that keeps the world in existence, his very being serving as fuel for the cosmic machinery that holds chaos at bay. The map shows you the true timeline of the crisis. Without intervention, without some fundamental change in the nature of the threat or the defenses against it, the barriers will fail within a human lifetime. The entities of chaos will break through, and the ordered universe will collapse back into the primordial void from which it emerged. Jon Snow's sacrifice is not just noble, it is ultimately futile, buying time for a world that cannot be permanently saved. But the map also reveals a glimmer of hope. There are other points of light beginning to appear in the network, other consciousnesses that are awakening to the true nature of the threat. The children of the forest, the last giants, the surviving dragons, even some humans who have been touched by the old magic. All of them are beginning to understand the cosmic crisis and offer their own strength to the defense. Jon Snow's transformation was not just about accepting the crown of winter. It was about creating a new kind of guardian, one who could serve as a focal point for all the remaining magical forces in the world. The King of Winter is not just a ruler, he is a beacon, a rallying point for all the beings who understand the true nature of the threat and are willing to sacrifice themselves to preserve the cosmic balance. Ghost rises from his position beside the starlight map and begins walking toward the northern edge of the clearing, where the darkness seems thickest. His red eyes glow with an intensity that seems to burn away the shadows, and you realize that he is not just Jon Snow's companion. He is his anchor, the part of him that remains connected to the world of flesh and blood, even as the rest of him expands to encompass the entire universe. The final revelation waits ahead, in the heart of the darkness where the crown of winter holds its eternal vigil. But already you understand that this is not just a story about a man who chose duty over desire. This is a story about the ultimate sacrifice, about the price of keeping the world in existence, about the kind of love that can only be expressed by giving up everything, including life itself, to protect others. Jon Snow has become something that transcends every definition of kingship, something that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy, and the Seven Kingdoms seem like a small corner of a much larger realm. He is the King of Winter, the guardian of the balance, the one who stands eternal watch at the very edge of existence. And his kingdom is not just the North, not just Westeros, but the entire universe itself. Ghost leads you toward the northern edge of the clearing, where the darkness seems to writhe and pulse with malevolent life. But as you approach what you expected to be the heart of the cosmic threat, the shadows begin to part, revealing not emptiness, but a gathering, unlike anything you could have imagined. The darkness was not hiding the entities of chaos. It was concealing a council of beings so ancient and powerful that your mind struggles to process their existence. The first figure to emerge from the shadows is the old woman you met earlier. But now you see her as she truly is. Her bent form straightens, revealing a height that seems to stretch beyond the normal limits of human proportions. Her white hair flows like liquid starlight, and her pale blue eyes hold the wisdom of ages. She is not just a wildling elder, she is one of the last of the children of the forest, her true nature concealed by magic until this moment of revelation. "You have traveled far, chronicler," she says, her voice carrying harmonics that seem to resonate with the very fabric of reality. "You have seen much, learned much, but the greatest truths still await your understanding." Around her, other figures begin to materialize from the darkness. You see giants, but not the crude creatures of legend. These are beings of such majesty and power that they seem to be carved from the very mountains themselves. Their eyes hold the deep wisdom of the earth, and their voices when they speak sound like the groaning of tectonic plates shifting in the depths of the world. You see the last of the true dragons, not the beasts of conquest that the Targaryens rode, but the original guardians of the flame that brings order out of chaos. They are smaller than their descendants, but infinitely more beautiful, their scales seeming to be made of crystallized fire, their eyes holding the knowledge of the cosmic forces they were created to protect. You see figures that might once have been human, but have been so transformed by their connection to the old magic that they exist more as concepts than as physical beings. They wear crowns made of living wood and crystallized time, and you realize that you are in the presence of the other guardians, the keepers of the various aspects of the cosmic balance. But most shocking of all, you see the spirits of those who gave their lives to bring Jon Snow to this moment. Ned Stark stands tall and proud, his form glowing with the integrity that defined his life. Ygritte appears as she was in life, wild and free, her red hair flowing like flames around her shoulders. The brothers of the Night's Watch stand in formation, their black cloaks replaced by robes of starlight, their faces reflecting the peace that comes from knowing their sacrifices were not in vain. "We are the Council of the Last Dawn," the Child of the Forest explains, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic authority. "We are the keepers of the hidden knowledge, the guardians of the secrets that must be preserved if the world is to survive the coming darkness." Ghost approaches the council and takes his place among them, his massive form fitting seamlessly into the gathering, as if he has always belonged there. His red eyes reflect the starlight that emanates from the assembled beings, and you realize that he is not just Jon Snow's companion, he is his representative, his voice in the council that guides the defense of reality itself. The giant, who appears to be the eldest of his kind, steps forward, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. The barriers grow weak, young chronicler. The entities of chaos press harder against the boundaries of existence with each passing day. The King of Winter bears the weight of the entire universe on his shoulders, but even his strength has limits. A dragon whose scales shimmer with colors that have no names adds her voice to the conversation. The old magic is awakening, but slowly, too slowly, the forces of order must be gathered and focused if they are to stand against the ultimate darkness. The Crown of Winter was designed to be the focal point of this gathering, but it requires conscious allies, beings who understand the true nature of the threat and are willing to sacrifice themselves to preserve the balance. Ned Stark's spirit speaks, his voice carrying the same moral authority that defined his life. "My son chose the hardest path, the loneliest path, the path that required him to give up everything he ever wanted to become what the world needed him to be. But he did not choose it blindly. He understood the cost, and he accepted it because he loved something greater than himself." Ygritte's spirit adds, her voice filled with the fierce love that defined her relationship with Jon. He could have chosen love, chosen happiness, chosen the simple life that every man deserves. But he chose duty, chose sacrifice, chose to become the guardian of everyone else's happiness, even though it meant giving up his own. The Child of the Forest gestures toward the north, where the darkness seems to pulse with increasing intensity. The Crown of Winter grants its bearer the power to maintain the cosmic balance, but it also connects him to every aspect of existence. He feels the pain of every creature that suffers, the fear of every being that faces the darkness, the hope of every soul that dreams of a better tomorrow. He has become the consciousness of the world itself, experiencing all of its joy and all of its anguish simultaneously. One of the transformed humans, a figure whose crown seems to be made of crystallized music, speaks in harmonies that seem to bypass your ears and speak directly to your soul. The burden would break any ordinary being, but Jon Snow was prepared for this responsibility through lifetimes of experience. His soul is older than his body, carrying the accumulated wisdom of all the previous guardians. He is not just one man bearing an impossible weight. He is the synthesis of every guardian who has ever lived, their combined strength focused through a single will. The eldest dragon, her form so ancient that she seems to be made of living history, reveals perhaps the most profound truth of all. The crown of winter is not just a symbol of power, it is a living entity, a consciousness that exists to preserve the fundamental harmony of existence. It chooses its bearers not just for their strength or their wisdom, but for their capacity to love something greater than themselves. Jon Snow was chosen because his love is infinite, encompassing not just his friends and family, but all of existence itself. The spirits of the Night's Watch brothers speak in unison, their voices creating harmonies that seem to resonate with the very foundations of reality. We swore an oath to be the sword in the darkness, the watchers on the walls, the fire that burns against the cold. But our oath was just preparation for his oath, the ultimate pledge that binds him to the defense of existence itself. He is the sword in the cosmic darkness, the watcher on the walls of reality, the fire that burns against the ultimate cold. The child of the forest approaches you, her ancient eyes reflecting depths of knowledge that span millennia. You have been chosen to bear witness to these truths, chronicler, but not just as a passive observer. The story you tell, the words you write, the understanding you carry back to the world of men, these things matter. The crown of winter's power is sustained not just by the will of its bearer, but by the faith of those who understand the true nature of his sacrifice. She places her hand on your shoulder, and suddenly your consciousness expands to encompass the entire network of connections that bind the world together. You see through Jon Snow's eyes, feel through his heart, understand through his mind. The experience is overwhelming, a flood of sensation and emotion that threatens to wash away your individual identity. You feel the weight of every star in the sky, the pulse of every heart that beats, the hope of every soul that dreams. You experience the profound loneliness of ultimate power, the isolation that comes from being connected to everything and belonging to nothing. But you also feel the love that sustains him, the infinite compassion that makes the burden bearable, the joy that comes from knowing that his sacrifice has meaning. The vision fades, but its impact remains. You understand now that Jon Snow's transformation was not just about accepting great power, it was about accepting the ultimate expression of love, the kind of devotion that can only be expressed through complete self-sacrifice. He became the King of Winter, not because he wanted to rule, but because he wanted to serve, to protect, to preserve the beauty and wonder of existence for all those who would come after him. The council begins to disperse, each member returning to their own realm of responsibility. But before they fade back into the shadows, the child of the forest offers you one final revelation. The crown of winter is eternal, but its bearer is not. Jon Snow's sacrifice will sustain the barriers for now, but eventually even his strength will fail. When that time comes, another must be prepared to accept the crown, to take on the ultimate responsibility. The bloodline continues, the guardians are chosen, and the watch never ends. She points toward the ultimate north, where the darkness seems to have given way to a light so brilliant that it hurts to look at directly. There, in the heart of the eternal winter, the King of Winter holds his vigil. He sits on a throne made of crystallized time, wearing a crown that encompasses all of existence, maintaining the balance that keeps the world from falling into chaos. He is alone as he must be, but he is not forgotten. Every act of love, every moment of joy, every instance of beauty in the world is a tribute to his sacrifice. Ghost returns to your side, his red eyes glowing with the reflected light of the cosmic throne. He is ready to take you to the final destination, to the place where Jon Snow maintains his eternal watch. But you understand now that this is not just a journey to see a king on his throne. This is a pilgrimage to the very heart of existence, to the place where love and duty and sacrifice converge to create the force that keeps the universe in being. The greatest revelation awaits in the heart of the eternal winter, where the crown of winter shines with the light of 1,000,000,000 stars, and the king of winter sits in solitude, bearing the weight of all existence on his shoulders. Jon Snow has become something that transcends every definition of kingship, something that makes the Iron Throne look like a child's toy, and the Seven Kingdoms seem like a small corner of a much larger realm. He is the guardian of the balance, the keeper of the cosmic order, the one who stands eternal watch at the very edge of existence. The council of ancient beings fades back into the mystical darkness, leaving you alone with Ghost in a landscape that seems to exist at the very edge of reality. The weight of everything you've learned settles on your shoulders like a cloak made of starlight and sorrow. You understand now that you are not just witnessing a story about a king who chose duty over desire. You are bearing witness to the ultimate sacrifice, the price that must be paid to keep the universe itself from falling into chaos. Ghost begins walking toward the true north, where the light you glimpsed earlier grows stronger with each step. But his movements have changed yet again. Where before he carried himself with the confidence of a guide or the reverence of a pilgrim, now he moves with the solemnity of one approaching a sacred shrine, where the deepest mysteries of existence are held in trust. His red eyes reflect not just the growing light ahead, but the accumulated weight of all the revelations you've encountered on this journey. The landscape around you transforms as you approach the heart of the eternal winter. The trees here are made of crystallized time, their branches reaching toward the sky in perfect mathematical spirals that seem to encode the fundamental equations of existence. The snow that falls from the starlit sky doesn't behave like ordinary snow. Each flake is a tiny mandala of perfect symmetry, and when they touch the ground, they create patterns that spell out words in the first tongue, messages from the very foundation of reality itself. You begin to feel the presence of Jon Snow before you see him. It starts as a subtle awareness, a sense that you are approaching someone whose consciousness has expanded to encompass the entire world, but gradually the feeling intensifies, becoming a pressure that seems to press against your mind from all directions. You realize that you are entering the sphere of influence of a being whose awareness touches every aspect of existence, whose will maintains the balance that keeps the universe from falling apart. The first sign of his presence is the way the very air around you begins to shimmer with possibilities. You see glimpses of other times, other places, other versions of reality layering themselves over the present moment. The past and future become visible as translucent overlays on the present, and you understand that you are approaching someone who exists not just in the current moment, but in all moments simultaneously. Ghost stops suddenly and turns to look at you, his red eyes filled with something that might be concern. In his gaze you see a warning, a gentle reminder that what you are about to witness will change you forever. The knowledge you are about to gain will make it impossible for you to return to the simple certainties of ordinary life. Once you see the true nature of Jon Snow's transformation, once you understand the full scope of his sacrifice, you will carry that weight with you for the rest of your days. But there is also compassion in Ghost's eyes, an understanding that some truths are too important to be hidden, even when they bring pain to those who learn them. He is giving you a choice, one last opportunity to turn back before crossing the threshold into ultimate knowledge. You could return to the world of men with the partial truths you've already learned, craft a story about a noble king who chose duty over desire, and live out your days in the comfort of incomplete understanding. You look into Ghost's eyes and see your own reflection, but it's not the same person who began this journey. The chronicler who set out to find the truth about Jon Snow's disappearance has been transformed by the revelations encountered along the way. You are no longer just a seeker of stories, you have become a keeper of the deepest secrets, a guardian of truths that could reshape the world if they were ever fully revealed. "I need to see," you whisper, your voice barely audible in the crystalline silence of the eternal winter. "I need to understand. Whatever the cost, I need to know the truth." Ghost nods once, a gesture that seems to carry the weight of cosmic acknowledgement. He turns and begins walking again, leading you toward the source of the brilliant light that grows stronger with each step. The ground beneath your feet changes as you approach the final destination, becoming something that isn't quite solid but isn't quite energy either. You are walking on the crystallized dreams of the world itself, the hopes and fears and longings of every being that has ever existed. The light ahead begins to take shape, resolving into a structure that defies every law of physics and architecture you thought you understood. It appears to be a palace made of frozen starlight, its walls transparent as crystal but solid as the foundations of the earth. The building seems to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, showing you different aspects of itself depending on how you approach it. From one angle, it looks like a simple wooden hall. From another, it appears to be a vast cathedral that stretches to the very edge of the sky. But it's the throne room that takes your breath away. The chamber is vast beyond measure, its ceiling disappearing into infinity, its walls covered in tapestries that seem to be woven from the aurora borealis itself. The floor is made of crystallized time, and as you walk across it, you can see the history of the world playing out beneath your feet like memories trapped in amber. At the center of the chamber, raised on a dais that seems to be carved from the very concept of responsibility itself, stands the throne of the King of Winter. But this is not just a seat of power. It is a focal point of cosmic force, a crystallization of the will that maintains the balance between order and chaos. The throne seems to be made of every element that exists in the universe: fire and ice, earth and air, light and shadow, all woven together in perfect harmony. And on that throne sits Jon Snow, but he is transformed beyond anything you could have imagined. His form seems to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Sometimes he appears as the young man you remember from the stories, dark-haired and serious, bearing the weight of his bastard birth. Sometimes he appears as the king in the north, regal and commanding, carrying the authority of ancient bloodlines. But most often he appears as something that transcends human form entirely, a being of pure consciousness clothed in starlight and responsibility. His eyes are the most changed aspect of his appearance. They hold the pale blue of winter ice, but within that blue you can see the swirling patterns of galaxies, the dance of cosmic forces, the eternal struggle between order and chaos. When he looks at you, you feel as if he is seeing not just your present self, but every moment of your existence, every choice you've made, every path you've walked. The crown of winter rests on his head, but it is not a physical object in any sense that you can understand. It appears to be made of crystallized concepts, woven from ideas of duty and sacrifice and love. It pulses with the rhythm of the cosmic heartbeat, and you realize that it is not just a symbol of his authority, it is the mechanism through which his will maintains the balance of existence itself. Around the throne, the air shimmers with the presence of forces that your mind struggles to comprehend. You see the fundamental equations of reality made visible, the mathematical principles that govern the behavior of matter and energy and consciousness. You see the connections that bind all things together, the threads of causality that link every event to every other event across the vast expanse of space and time. But what strikes you most profoundly is the solitude that surrounds the throne. Jon Snow sits alone in the center of the vast chamber, connected to everything but belonging to nothing. He has become the consciousness of the universe itself, but in doing so, he has separated himself from the simple joys and sorrows that make life meaningful for ordinary beings. He can feel the love that flows between all living things, but he cannot participate in it. He can see the beauty that exists in every moment, but he cannot experience it as an individual. The weight of his sacrifice becomes clear to you in a way that makes your heart ache with sympathetic pain. He gave up not just his name, his identity, his human relationships. He gave up the very possibility of happiness as an individual consciousness. He became the guardian of everyone else's joy, but in doing so he condemned himself to an existence of cosmic loneliness that will last until the end of time itself. But even as you feel the profound sadness of his situation, you also sense something else. There is a peace in his posture, a contentment that comes from knowing that his sacrifice has meaning. He may be alone, but he is not lost. He may be separated from individual happiness, but he is connected to the happiness of all existence. He has found a form of fulfillment that transcends personal satisfaction, a joy that comes from serving something infinitely greater than himself. Ghost approaches the throne and sits at its base, his massive form dwarfed by the cosmic scale of the chamber. But his presence seems to bring a warmth to the crystalline coldness of the space, a reminder of the bonds that connect the King of Winter to the world he protects. In Ghost's eyes, you see not just loyalty, but love of a kind that transcends ordinary understanding. He is not just Jon Snow's companion. He is his anchor to the world of individual consciousness, the part of him that remembers what it means to be a single being among many. The aurora borealis begins to dance across the ceiling of the chamber, creating patterns that seem to spell out messages in languages that speak directly to the soul. The lights tell the story of the cosmic balance, the eternal struggle between order and chaos, the endless cycle of creation and destruction that drives the universe forward. But they also tell the story of love, of sacrifice, of the beings who choose to serve something greater than themselves. You realize that you are witnessing not just the transformation of a man into a king, but the transformation of love itself into a force that can sustain the universe. Jon Snow's sacrifice is not just noble or heroic, it is the ultimate expression of the principle that holds all existence together, the willingness to give up everything for the well-being of others. The chamber begins to resonate with a sound that seems to come from the very foundations of reality, a harmony that encompasses every voice that has ever spoken, every song that has ever been sung, every word that has ever been written. It is the sound of the universe itself, celebrating the presence of its guardian, acknowledging the sacrifice that keeps it in existence. And in that cosmic chorus, you hear the echo of a promise, a commitment that transcends the boundaries of time and space. The King of Winter will maintain his vigil, will bear the weight of existence on his shoulders, will stand guard against the forces of chaos. For as long as there are beings who dream of beauty, who hope for tomorrow, who believe in the possibility of love. The greatest revelation is almost upon you, but already you understand that this is not just a story about power or duty or sacrifice. This is a story about the ultimate nature of love itself, about the force that creates and sustains and preserves everything that exists. Jon Snow has become the living embodiment of that force, the consciousness through which the universe loves itself. The cosmic harmony that fills the crystalline chamber reaches a crescendo that seems to shake the very foundations of reality. The aurora borealis dancing across the infinite ceiling begins to coalesce into patterns that your mind finally recognizes as words, messages written in the fundamental language of existence itself. And as you stand before the throne of the King of Winter, witnessing the ultimate transformation of Jon Snow into something beyond human comprehension, the final truth begins to unfold before your eyes. Jon Snow turns his gaze toward you, and in that moment you feel the full weight of his consciousness touching yours. It is not an invasion, but an invitation, a gentle opening of the barriers that separate one mind from another. Through that connection, you experience the truth of his transformation, not as an observer, but as a participant in the cosmic drama that has been unfolding for millennia. The first revelation comes as a flood of memory and understanding that threatens to overwhelm your individual consciousness. You see the moment when Jon Snow first accepted the crown of winter, but it was not a single dramatic event. It was a gradual process that began the moment he was born, a slow transformation that accelerated with each choice he made, each sacrifice he accepted, each moment when he chose duty over desire. The bastard's shame that drove him to the wall was not just personal anguish, it was the crown of winter's influence, guiding him toward the isolation that would prepare him for ultimate loneliness. The oaths he swore to the Night's Watch were not just promises to defend the realm, they were practice for the ultimate oath that would bind him to the defense of existence itself. The love he felt for Ygritte was not just romantic passion, it was training for the infinite love that would sustain him through eternal solitude. But the most shocking revelation is the true nature of his death and resurrection. The knives that pierced his heart at Castle Black were not just the weapons of ambitious men. They were the tools of the Crown of Winter itself, using the treachery of his brothers to sever the last bonds that tied him to ordinary human existence. His death was not a tragedy to be overcome. It was a necessary transformation, a metamorphosis that would allow him to accept the ultimate responsibility. The magic that brought him back to life was not the power of the Lord of Light or the will of the old gods. It was the Crown of Winter reclaiming its chosen guardian, reshaping his consciousness to encompass the vast scope of cosmic responsibility. When Jon Snow opened his eyes after his resurrection, he was no longer just a man. He was a being capable of bearing the weight of the universe itself. Through his expanded consciousness, you experience the true scope of the threat that he now holds at bay. The entities of chaos that exist beyond the edges of reality are not just alien intelligences seeking to invade the ordered universe. They are the antithesis of existence itself, forces that exist to unmake the very concepts of order and meaning and purpose. They are not evil in any sense that human morality can comprehend. They are the opposite of being, the negation of all that is. The barriers that keep these entities at bay are not physical walls or magical spells. They are the very structure of reality itself, the framework of natural laws and cosmic principles that give existence its form. And those barriers are maintained not by impersonal forces, but by conscious will, by beings who understand the nature of the cosmic balance and have the power to preserve it. Jon Snow's consciousness expands to show you the true nature of the Crown of Winter. It is not just a symbol of authority or a tool of power. It is a living entity, a crystallization of the will to preserve existence that has been passed down through generations of guardians. Each bearer adds their own strength to the crown, their own understanding of the cosmic balance, their own commitment to the preservation of order. But the crown also reveals its most terrible secret. The guardians who bear it are not just protectors of the balance. They are its fuel, their life force slowly consumed to maintain the barriers that keep chaos at bay. Each guardian who accepts the crown knows that they are accepting not just ultimate responsibility, but ultimate sacrifice. They will burn themselves out maintaining the cosmic order, their consciousness gradually dissolving into the fundamental structure of reality itself. Jon Snow's transformation was not just about accepting great power. It was about accepting the certainty of his own dissolution, the knowledge that his individual existence would eventually be consumed by the cosmic forces he was sworn to protect. The Crown of Winter does not grant immortality. It grants the opportunity to choose how one's mortality will be spent, to make one's death meaningful by using it to preserve existence itself. Through his eyes, you see the true timeline of his sacrifice. He has perhaps a human lifetime left, maybe two if he is careful with his strength. But every moment of that time will be spent maintaining the barriers, holding back the forces of chaos, preserving the balance that keeps the universe from falling apart. He will grow weaker with each passing year, his consciousness gradually diffusing into the cosmic structure he maintains, until finally there is nothing left of Jon Snow but the echo of his will preserving the order of existence. But the vision also reveals the hope that sustains him through this terrible knowledge. The Crown of Winter is not just a burden to be borne by one individual. It is a focal point for all the forces of order in the universe, a rallying point for all the beings who understand the true nature of the cosmic balance. The children of the forest, the last giants, the surviving dragons, the transformed humans who have touched the old magic, all of them are contributing their own strength to the defense of reality. Jon Snow's acceptance of the crown of winter was not just about becoming a solitary guardian. It was about creating a network of protectors, a community of beings dedicated to preserving the cosmic balance. He is not just the king of winter. He is the center of a web of consciousness that encompasses all the remaining magical forces in the world, the focal point through which their combined will maintains the barriers against chaos. The revelation reaches its climax as Jon Snow rises from his throne, his transformed consciousness touching every aspect of existence simultaneously. Through his awareness, you experience the ultimate truth about the nature of reality itself. The universe is not a collection of separate objects existing in empty space. It is a single living entity, a conscious being whose thoughts are the natural laws, whose dreams are the galaxies, whose heartbeat is the passage of time itself. And Jon Snow has become the guardian of that cosmic consciousness, the protector of the universe's ability to know itself. He is not just maintaining the balance between order and chaos. He is preserving the very capacity for existence to be aware of its own existence, to dream of beauty, to hope for tomorrow, to believe in the possibility of love. The whisper that began this journey, the fragment of legend that drew you beyond the wall, suddenly echoes through the crystalline chamber with new meaning. A bastard's crown was never iron. The voices of the cosmos sing in harmony, but forged of ice and fire, eternal as winter itself, bright as the stars that witness the ultimate sacrifice of love. And in that moment, you understand the true magnitude of what Jon Snow has become. He is not just the king of winter. He is the consciousness of love itself, the living embodiment of the principle that creates and sustains and preserves all existence. His sacrifice is not just noble or heroic. It is the ultimate expression of the force that holds the universe together, the willingness to give up everything for the well-being of others. The throne room begins to fade around you, but the truth remains burned into your consciousness. Jon Snow did not walk away from power when he went beyond the wall. He walked toward the greatest power imaginable, the authority to preserve existence itself. The crown of winter is not just a symbol of kingship. It is the crystallization of love's ultimate victory over chaos, the proof that the universe chooses meaning over meaninglessness, order over dissolution, hope over despair. The Iron Throne was never meant for him because his true throne is the cosmos itself. His kingdom is all of existence. His subjects are every being that has ever lived or will ever live. He has become the ultimate king, the guardian of the ultimate realm, the protector of the ultimate treasure that is the capacity for anything to exist at all. And in the fading light of the vision, you hear his voice, not speaking to you but to the universe itself, the eternal oath that binds him to his cosmic duty. I am the sword in the darkness, the watcher on the walls, the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to the night's watch, to the preservation of existence, to the defense of meaning itself, for this night and all the nights to come. The King of Winter has claimed his true crown, accepted his ultimate responsibility, and begun his eternal watch. The bastard who never wanted power has become the most powerful being in the universe, and his kingdom is the very fact that anything exists at all. The cosmic vision fades slowly, like dawn breaking over a world that has been transformed in the night. You find yourself standing once again in the crystalline chamber, but now everything you see carries new meaning, new depth, new significance. The throne of the King of Winter no longer appears as just a seat of power. It reveals itself as the focal point of existence itself, the center around which all reality revolves, the axis upon which the cosmic balance turns. Jon Snow's consciousness gradually withdraws from its connection with yours, but the touch of his infinite awareness leaves permanent changes in your understanding. You can feel the network of connections that bind all things together, the invisible threads that link every star to every grain of sand, every thought to every emotion, every moment to every other moment, across the vast expanse of space and time. The universe is not a collection of separate objects existing in empty space. It is a single living entity, and Jon Snow has become its guardian consciousness. The third and final mystery that has driven your journey beyond the wall resolves itself in a revelation that encompasses everything you have learned. The crown of winter is not just a symbol of ultimate authority. It is the crystallization of the universe's will to continue existing, the living embodiment of the choice between meaning and meaninglessness, order and chaos, love and indifference. And Jon Snow, in accepting this crown, has become the conscious expression of that choice. But the resolution reveals something even more profound. The network of guardians that Jon Snow has created extends far beyond the magical beings you witnessed in the Council of the Last Dawn. Every act of love, every moment of sacrifice, every choice to put others before oneself contributes to the cosmic defense. The mother who gives up her own comfort for her child, the soldier who dies protecting his homeland, the healer who risks infection to treat the diseased, all of them are part of the network that sustains the barriers against chaos. The crown of winter does not create this network. It focuses, giving conscious direction to the innate tendency of conscious beings to choose meaning over meaninglessness. Order over chaos, love over indifference. Jon Snow's transformation into the King of Winter was not about separating him from humanity. It was about connecting him to the deepest humanity of all conscious beings, the part of them that recognizes the value of existence and is willing to sacrifice for its preservation. Through your enhanced understanding, you see how Jon Snow's story connects to the broader mythology of the world. The Song of Ice and Fire that gives the saga its name is not just about political conflicts or magical powers. It is about the fundamental forces that govern existence itself. Ice represents the tendency toward order, structure, preservation, the will to maintain what has been created. Fire represents the tendency toward change, growth, transformation, the will to create something new. The crown of winter synthesizes these forces, using the stability of ice to preserve the creative potential of fire, ensuring that the universe can continue to grow and change without losing its essential coherence. The Iron Throne, with all its political significance and symbolic weight, is revealed as nothing more than a shadow of the true throne, a crude approximation of real power created by beings who had no understanding of the cosmic forces they were trying to manipulate. The kings and queens who fought and died for the right to sit on the Iron Throne were pursuing an illusion, chasing after a symbol of authority that had no real connection to the fundamental forces that actually govern existence. But their struggles were not meaningless. Every act of courage, every moment of noble sacrifice, every choice to put duty before desire contributed to the network of consciousness that would eventually allow Jon Snow to accept the crown of winter. The political history of Westeros is not just a chronicle of ambition and betrayal. It is the story of how consciousness evolves, how beings learn to recognize the difference between real power and the mere appearance of power, how love gradually overcomes the illusions that separate individuals from the cosmic whole. The resolution reveals the true nature of the prophecies that have guided so much of the story. The prince that was promised, the chosen one who would bring balance to the world, was never meant to be a political leader or a military commander. The prophecy was about the emergence of a consciousness capable of accepting the ultimate responsibility, a being who could synthesize all the opposing forces in the universe and maintain the cosmic balance through the power of infinite love. Jon Snow's unique heritage, his combination of Stark and Targaryen blood, was not just about mixing ice and fire in a genetic sense. It was about creating a consciousness that could understand both the necessity of preservation and the inevitability of change, both the value of tradition and the importance of growth. His experiences as a bastard, as a member of the Night's Watch, as a leader of men, as a lover, as a friend, as an enemy. All of these were necessary components of his education for the ultimate responsibility. The resurrection that brought him back from death was not just a miraculous intervention, it was the moment when the Crown of Winter finally claimed its chosen guardian, when Jon Snow's consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of individual existence to encompass the cosmic whole. The magic that restored his life was the same magic that maintains the barriers against chaos, the fundamental force that keeps the universe from dissolving back into the primordial void. The network of consciousness that Jon Snow now maintains extends not just across space but across time. The guardians who came before him, the beings who will come after him, the countless individuals who contribute their own small sacrifices to the cosmic defense, all of them are connected through the Crown of Winter. The throne room where he sits is not just a physical location. It is a nexus point where all times and all places converge, where the past and future meet in an eternal present dedicated to the preservation of existence. Ghost's role in this cosmic drama is revealed as far more significant than mere companionship. The great direwolf serves as Jon Snow's anchor to the world of individual consciousness, the part of him that remembers what it means to be a single being among many. Without Ghost's presence, Jon Snow's consciousness would gradually dissolve completely into the cosmic structure he maintains, leaving the barriers against chaos without a conscious guardian. But Ghost is also more than just an anchor. He is a bridge between the realm of the King of Winter and the world of ordinary beings, carrying messages and influences that help to strengthen the network of consciousness that supports the cosmic defense. Every being that Ghost touches, every creature that recognizes his true nature, becomes part of the network that sustains the barriers against chaos. The resolution reveals the true scope of Jon Snow's kingdom. He does not rule over the lands beyond the Wall, or even over the continent of Westeros. His kingdom is the entire universe. His subjects are every conscious being that has ever existed or will ever exist. His responsibility is the preservation of the very capacity for consciousness to exist at all. The Crown of Winter grants him authority not over people or places, but over the fundamental forces that govern reality itself. The lonely vigil that Jon Snow maintains is not just a personal sacrifice. It is a cosmic necessity, a conscious choice that must be made again and again, moment by moment, to preserve the universe's ability to know itself. The barriers against chaos are not automatic or self-sustaining. They require constant renewal, constant reinforcement, constant vigilance from a consciousness that understands the true nature of the threat and has the power to resist it. The love that sustains Jon Snow through his eternal solitude is not just the memory of personal relationships. It is the direct experience of the love that flows between all conscious beings, the recognition that every joy, every sorrow, every hope, every fear is part of a single cosmic symphony of consciousness. He experiences the love that a parent feels for a child, the devotion that friends feel for each other, the passion that lovers share, the loyalty that binds communities together, not as separate experiences, but as aspects of a single universal force. The price of his transformation is not just personal loneliness. It is the acceptance of cosmic responsibility, the understanding that his individual happiness is less important than the continued existence of the universe itself. But the reward is not just the satisfaction of duty fulfilled. It is the direct experience of the universe's love for itself, the recognition that consciousness is the most precious thing that exists, the understanding that his sacrifice has preserved the most beautiful and meaningful phenomena in all of reality. The resolution reveals that Jon Snow's story is not ending with his acceptance of the Crown of Winter. It is beginning, transitioning from the tale of a man becoming a king to the legend of a consciousness becoming the guardian of existence itself. The political dramas and military conflicts that once seemed so important fade into background noise compared to the cosmic responsibility he has accepted. The Crown of Winter is eternal, but its bearers are not. Eventually, even Jon Snow's expanded consciousness will begin to diffuse into the cosmic structure he maintains. When that time comes, the crown will choose another guardian, another consciousness capable of bearing the ultimate responsibility. The bloodlines will continue. The network of consciousness will evolve. The cosmic balance will be maintained by whatever means necessary. But for now, in this moment that encompasses all moments, Jon Snow sits on the throne of the King of Winter, wearing the crown that synthesizes all opposing forces, maintaining the barriers that keep the universe from falling into chaos. He is alone, as he must be, but he is also connected to everything that exists, experiencing the love that holds the cosmos together, preserving the capacity for consciousness to know itself. The bastard who never wanted power has become the most powerful being in the universe, and his kingdom is the very fact that anything exists at all. The Iron Throne was never meant for him because his true throne is the cosmos itself. His realm is all of existence. His crown is the crystallization of love's ultimate victory over chaos. He has become the King of Winter, the guardian of the eternal spring that allows consciousness to bloom in the darkness of the void. The crystalline chamber begins to fade around you like a dream dissolving in the morning light. But the truth you have witnessed remains burned into your consciousness with the permanence of stars carved into the darkness of space. As the vision of the cosmic throne room grows dim, you find yourself standing once again in the mystical landscape of the true North. But everything you see now carries the weight of ultimate understanding. Ghost sits beside you, his red eyes reflecting not just the ethereal light of the aurora borealis that dances overhead, but the accumulated wisdom of ages. In his gaze, you see the recognition of what you have become. You are no longer just a chronicler seeking a story about a missing king. You are a witness to the most profound truth in the history of existence, a keeper of knowledge that could reshape the world if it were ever fully revealed. The process of integrating what you have learned begins slowly, like a river gradually carving its way through stone. Your mind struggles to contain the vast scope of Jon Snow's transformation, the cosmic implications of his acceptance of the crown of winter, the true nature of the threat he holds at bay. But gradually the pieces begin to fit together, creating a picture of reality that is both more terrifying and more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. The first wave of understanding that washes over you is the recognition of how small and yet how significant your own existence truly is. You are a single consciousness among billions, a brief flicker of awareness in the vast expanse of space and time, but you are also a part of the network that Jon Snow now maintains, a contributor to the cosmic defense, a thread in the tapestry of consciousness that keeps the universe from falling into chaos. Every choice you make, every act of love or courage or sacrifice, every moment when you choose meaning over meaninglessness, order over chaos, hope over despair, contributes to the strength of the barriers that the King of Winter maintains. You are not just a passive observer of cosmic events. You are an active participant in the preservation of existence itself. The second wave of understanding brings with it a profound sense of gratitude that threatens to overwhelm your individual consciousness. The simple fact that you exist, that you can think and feel and experience the beauty of the world, is not a given. It is a gift that is preserved moment by moment through the sacrifice of a being who gave up everything to ensure that consciousness could continue to exist. Every sunrise you witness, every flower you see blooming, every smile that crosses a friend's face, every moment of joy or wonder or love that you experience exists because Jon Snow chose to accept the ultimate responsibility. The world that you inhabit, with all its complexity and beauty and meaning, is sustained by his cosmic vigil. The third wave of understanding reveals the true nature of the stories that will be told about Jon Snow in the years to come. The bards will sing of the bastard who became a king and then walked away from power, seeking peace in the northern wilderness. The histories will record his choice to go beyond the wall as an act of noble self-exile, preferring solitude to the corrupting influence of political authority. But you know the truth that underlies these simple stories. Jon Snow did not walk away from power. He walked toward the greatest power imaginable, accepting a responsibility that makes earthly kingship look like a children's game. The crown of winter grants its bearer dominion over the forces of nature themselves, but it also demands a sacrifice that goes to the very core of what it means to be conscious. The knowledge you carry is both a burden and a blessing. You understand now why the truth about the crown of winter has been hidden from the world of ordinary men. Most consciousness is not ready to comprehend the cosmic nature of existence, the delicate balance that must be maintained to prevent the universe from falling into chaos. The simple stories about kings and queens, wars and politics, love and betrayal, serve as a necessary veil over the deeper truths that govern reality. But the knowledge also brings with it a sense of purpose that transforms your understanding of your own role in the cosmic drama. You are not just a chronicler of events. You are a guardian of truths, a keeper of knowledge, a bridge between the realm of the King of Winter and the world of ordinary consciousness. The stories you tell, the words you write, the understanding you share, all of these contribute to the network of consciousness that supports the cosmic defense. The fourth wave of understanding reveals the true scope of the healing that Jon Snow's acceptance of the crown of winter has brought to the world. The barriers against chaos are not just holding back abstract forces of destruction. They are preserving the capacity for consciousness to heal itself, to grow, to evolve, to become more than it was. The wounds inflicted by centuries of war and conflict, the scars left by the struggle between ice and fire, the damage done to the world by the return of magic and the awakening of ancient powers, all of these are slowly being healed by the cosmic balance that the King of Winter maintains. The universe is not just being preserved, it is being restored, returned to a state of harmony that allows consciousness to flourish. But the healing is not instantaneous or automatic. It requires the active participation of every conscious being, the recognition that individual happiness is connected to the cosmic whole, the understanding that personal actions have universal consequences. The network of consciousness that Jon Snow maintains is not just a passive connection, it is an active collaboration between all beings who recognize the value of existence and are willing to contribute to its preservation. The fifth wave of understanding brings with it the recognition of the profound loneliness that Jon Snow has accepted as the price of his transformation. The King of Winter sits on his cosmic throne, connected to everything but belonging to nothing, experiencing the love that flows between all conscious beings, but unable to participate in it as an individual. But the loneliness is not meaningless suffering. It is the necessary condition for his role as guardian of the cosmic balance. To maintain the barriers against chaos, he must exist outside the normal flow of individual consciousness, observing and protecting, but never fully participating. His solitude is not a punishment but a sacrifice, freely chosen and continuously renewed. The understanding of his loneliness brings with it a corresponding understanding of the love that sustains him. It is not the love of personal relationships or individual attachments. It is the love of existence itself, the recognition that consciousness is the most precious thing in the universe, the understanding that his sacrifice preserves the most beautiful and meaningful phenomena in all of reality. The sixth wave of understanding reveals the true nature of hope in a universe where the forces of chaos are held at bay by the sacrifice of a single consciousness. The barriers that Jon Snow maintains are not permanent or unbreakable. They require constant renewal, constant vigilance, constant sacrifice from beings who understand the true nature of the cosmic balance. But hope does not depend on the permanence of the barriers. It depends on the recognition that consciousness is capable of choosing meaning over meaninglessness, order over chaos, love over indifference. As long as conscious beings exist who are willing to make that choice, the universe will continue to find guardians for the cosmic balance. The crown of winter will be passed to another consciousness when Jon Snow's strength finally fails. The network of guardians will evolve and adapt to meet new challenges and threats. The cosmic balance will be maintained by whatever means necessary, as long as consciousness continues to value its own existence. The seventh wave of understanding brings with it the recognition of the cyclical nature of cosmic history. The current crisis, the threat of chaos breaking through the barriers of reality, is not unique. It is part of a pattern that has repeated throughout the history of existence, a cycle of challenge and response that drives the evolution of consciousness itself. Each time the barriers weaken, consciousness must evolve to meet the challenge. Each time a new guardian accepts the ultimate responsibility, the network of consciousness becomes stronger and more sophisticated. Each time the cosmic balance is threatened, the universe develops new ways to preserve itself. Jon Snow's transformation into the King of Winter represents the latest stage in this evolutionary process. He is not just preserving the current state of existence. He is creating the conditions for consciousness to evolve beyond its current limitations, to become something greater and more resilient than it has ever been before. The eighth and final wave of understanding reveals the true meaning of the journey you have undertaken. You did not come beyond the wall just to learn the truth about Jon Snow's disappearance. You came to witness the transformation of consciousness itself, to see how love can overcome the greatest challenges, to understand how sacrifice can become the foundation for the greatest victories. The knowledge you carry back to the world will not be the simple truth about the King of Winter. It will be the deeper truth about the nature of existence itself, the recognition that consciousness is both fragile and resilient, both vulnerable and powerful, both isolated and connected. The stories you tell will carry this understanding, even if the listeners are not ready to comprehend its full implications. Ghost rises from his position beside you and begins walking back toward the south, toward the world of ordinary men and women who live their lives unaware of the cosmic drama that surrounds them. His red eyes reflect not just the mystical light of the true north, but the warmth of a consciousness that has chosen to serve as a bridge between the realm of the King of Winter and the world of individual existence. You follow, carrying with you the weight of ultimate knowledge and the responsibility of ultimate understanding. The journey beyond the wall is ending, but the real journey is just beginning. You must return to the world of men and find ways to share the truth you have learned, to contribute to the network of consciousness that supports the cosmic defense, to help preserve the universe's capacity to know itself. The bastard who never wanted power has become the most powerful being in the universe, and his kingdom is the very fact that anything exists at all. The crown of winter shines with the light of infinite love, and the King of Winter maintains his eternal vigil, preserving the cosmic balance that allows consciousness to flourish in the darkness of the void. And in the growing distance, as the mystical landscape of the true north fades behind you, you carry with you the echo of a promise that transcends the boundaries of time and space. The King of Winter will maintain his watch, will bear the weight of existence on his shoulders, will stand guard against the forces of chaos, for as long as there are beings who dream of beauty, who hope for tomorrow, who believe in the possibility of love. The journey back through the mystical landscape of the true north unfolds like a gentle dream, each step carrying you further from the cosmic revelation you have witnessed, but deeper into the peaceful understanding that comes with ultimate truth. Ghost walks beside you with the steady rhythm of a companion who has shared the greatest secrets of existence, his presence a constant reminder that you are not alone in carrying the weight of what you have learned. The aurora borealis dances overhead in patterns that seem less random now, more like a gentle lullaby written in light across the star-filled sky. The colors shift and flow in harmonies that speak directly to the soul, green and gold and silver, spiraling together in formations that celebrate the cosmic balance maintained by the King of Winter. Each pulse of light carries with it the echo of Jon Snow's sacrifice, the quiet assurance that consciousness is protected, that existence itself is held in loving care. As you walk, the landscape around you begins to shift and soften, the crystalline edges of the mystical realm giving way to gentler forms. The trees that once seemed to be made of frozen time now appear more like ordinary pines and oaks, their branches swaying in a breeze that carries the scent of winter roses and distant hearth fires. The snow beneath your feet loses its otherworldly patterns, becoming simple white powder that crunches softly with each step. But the transformation is not a return to mundane reality. It is a recognition that the mystical and the ordinary are not separate realms, but different aspects of the same truth. The trees that appear ordinary are still connected to the cosmic network that Jon Snow maintains. The snow that seems simple still carries within it the crystallized dreams of the universe. The breeze that feels natural still bears the whispered promises of the eternal guardian. You pause at a grove where the trees grow in a perfect circle, their branches intertwining overhead to create a natural cathedral filled with soft golden light. In the center of this peaceful space, a small spring bubbles up from the earth, its waters clear and warm despite the eternal winter that surrounds it. The spring is surrounded by flowers that bloom in defiance of the cold, their petals shifting through every color of the rainbow as they sway in the gentle breeze. This is where the winter roses grow, the memorial garden where Jon Snow's transformation is remembered, not with sorrow, but with celebration. The flowers are not just beautiful, they are alive with the joy of existence itself, each bloom a testament to the love that preserves consciousness, each petal a reminder that the universe chooses beauty over emptiness, meaning over void. Ghost approaches the spring and drinks deeply from its waters, his red eyes reflecting the golden light that seems to emanate from the flowers themselves. As he drinks, you notice that the water carries with it tiny sparkles of light, like liquid starlight that nourishes not just the body but the soul. This is the water of life, the source of renewal that flows from the cosmic balance maintained by the King of Winter. You kneel beside the spring and cup the warm water in your hands, feeling its gentle power flowing through your fingers. When you drink, the taste is indescribable, like honey and starlight, and the memory of every beautiful moment you have ever experienced. The water carries with it the essence of hope, the understanding that consciousness is not just preserved but cherished, not just protected but celebrated. The flowers around the spring begin to glow more brightly, their colors intensifying until they seem to be made of pure light. But the light is not harsh or blinding. It is gentle and warm, like sunlight filtered through stained glass, like candlelight reflected in crystal, like the first light of dawn breaking over a world at peace. The flowers are singing, their petals creating harmonies that blend with the whisper of the wind and the gentle murmur of the spring. The song they sing is the lullaby of the universe, the gentle melody that consciousness uses to sing itself to sleep. It tells the story of the cosmic balance, the eternal dance between order and chaos, the love that holds everything together. But it tells the story not as a tale of conflict and struggle, but as a celebration of beauty and meaning, a recognition that existence itself is the greatest miracle of all. As you listen to the flowers singing, you feel the last of the tension and fear that has driven your journey melting away like snow in spring sunlight. The cosmic threat that Jon Snow holds at bay, the forces of chaos that press against the barriers of reality, the terrible loneliness of the ultimate guardian, all of these truths remain real and significant. But they are balanced by the equally real truth of the love that sustains the universe, the beauty that makes existence meaningful, the hope that consciousness will continue to evolve and grow. The network of consciousness that connects all beings extends through this peaceful grove, linking the spring and the flowers and the trees to every other beautiful thing in the universe. The mother singing her child to sleep, the lovers walking hand in hand beneath the stars, the friends sharing stories around a warm fire. the artist creating beauty from imagination, the healer bringing comfort to those who suffer. All of them are part of the same cosmic symphony that plays in this sacred space. Ghost rises from the spring and begins walking again, but his pace has slowed to a gentle stroll that matches the peaceful rhythm of the grove. The urgency that drove the earlier stages of the journey has been replaced by a calm acceptance of the truth that has been revealed. There is no need to hurry now, no pressing quest to fulfill, no mystery to solve. The greatest secret has been unveiled, and it is beautiful beyond all imagining. The path leads through meadows where the grass seems to glow with its own inner light, where flowers bloom in patterns that spell out words of comfort and encouragement, in languages that speak directly to the heart. The air is filled with the sound of distant music, symphonies played by wind and water, and the gentle voices of all the beings who understand the true nature of existence. You realize that you are not just walking through a landscape, you are walking through a living prayer, a continuous celebration of the fact that consciousness exists, that beauty is possible, that love is real. Every step carries you deeper into the understanding that the universe is not a cold and hostile place where consciousness struggles to survive, but a warm and nurturing realm where consciousness is cherished and protected. The stars overhead begin to fade as the first light of dawn touches the horizon. But the fading is not a loss. It is a transformation, a gentle transition from the mystical night to the peaceful day. The aurora borealis softens into wisps of color that blend with the growing light, like watercolor paints flowing together on a canvas made of sky. As the light grows stronger, you begin to see the edges of the familiar world, the boundaries of the realm where ordinary men and women live their lives. The wall appears in the distance, no longer a barrier between the civilized and the wild, but a bridge between the world of individual consciousness and the realm of cosmic understanding. The ancient stones glow with a soft light that speaks of the magic they contain, the connection they maintain to the network of consciousness that spans the universe. Ghost leads you to a hill that overlooks the wall, where the growing daylight reveals a vista of breathtaking beauty. The lands beyond the wall stretch out in all directions, no longer appearing as a frozen wasteland but as a garden of infinite possibility. The trees shine with inner light, the streams flow like liquid silver, and the very air shimmers with the presence of the old magic that connects all things. But it is not just the magical landscape that takes your breath away. It is the recognition that the ordinary world visible beyond the wall is equally beautiful, equally meaningful, equally connected to the cosmic network of consciousness. The farms and villages, the roads and bridges, the people going about their daily lives, all of them are part of the same magnificent tapestry of existence. The sun rises fully above the horizon, its light warm and golden, and filled with the promise of a new day. The aurora borealis fades completely, but its message remains written in the sky, a reminder that beauty exists in every moment, that consciousness is celebrated in every sunrise, that love is renewed with every dawn. Ghost sits beside you on the hill, his massive form perfectly still, as he gazes out over the landscape that he has helped to protect. His red eyes reflect not just the morning light, but the deep satisfaction of a duty well performed, a trust well kept, a love well expressed. He is the bridge between the realm of the King of Winter and the world of ordinary consciousness, and he will continue to serve in that role for as long as consciousness exists. The knowledge you carry will be shared, but not in the way you originally imagined. You will not write the simple story of a king who walked away from power. Instead, you will craft tales that carry the deeper truths within them, stories that speak to the heart as well as the mind, narratives that help consciousness recognize its own beauty and value. The bastard who never wanted power has become the most powerful being in the universe, and his kingdom is the very fact that anything exists at all. The crown of winter shines with the light of infinite love, and the King of Winter maintains his eternal vigil, preserving the cosmic balance that allows consciousness to flourish in the darkness of the void. And in the growing warmth of the morning sun, as the peaceful landscape spreads out before you like a promise of endless beauty, you carry with you the echo of the ultimate truth. The universe is not just a collection of matter and energy moving through empty space. It is a living entity, a conscious being whose dreams are the galaxies, whose thoughts are the natural laws, whose love is the force that holds everything together. The crown of winter is eternal. The king of winter is infinite, and the kingdom of consciousness extends to every corner of existence. The watch never ends, the vigil never falters, and the love that sustains the universe burns brighter with each passing moment. In the heart of the eternal winter, where the old magic flows strongest, Jon Snow sits on his cosmic throne, bearing the weight of existence on his shoulders, preserving the capacity for consciousness to know itself. And as you begin the journey back to the world of ordinary men and women, you carry with you the greatest gift of all. The knowledge that consciousness is not alone, that existence is not meaningless, that love is not an illusion. The universe cares for itself through the consciousness it creates, protects itself through the love it inspires, and renews itself through the hope it nurtures. The King of Winter watches over all, and his kingdom is the beautiful fact that anything exists at all. The crown he wears is made of starlight and responsibility, and the throne he sits upon is the very heart of existence itself. He is alone, as he must be, but he is not lonely, for he carries within his consciousness the love of every being that has ever existed or will ever exist. The bastard's crown was never iron, but forged of ice and fire, eternal as winter itself, bright as the stars that witness the ultimate sacrifice of love. And in the growing light of dawn, that crown shines with the promise that consciousness will continue, that beauty will endure, that love will prevail, for this night and all the nights to come. If you found meaning in tonight's journey into the heart of Westeros, if you felt the weight of cosmic truths and the comfort of ultimate understanding, then perhaps you'd like to explore more of these hidden mysteries together. There are other worlds to discover, other secrets to uncover, other truths that lie hidden beneath the surface of beloved stories. The journey into wonder never truly ends, and there are always new paths to explore in the endless garden of imagination.